better wait here. I'll be back in 10 minutes.
Even 10 minutes is a long time to be away from you.
Hello everyone, welcome to the stream. Hello everyone in chat, how are you all doing today? So, for anyone who is unfamiliar with the format of this stream, it's basically just a painting stream, and then I bring on people as like guests. Last week we had Martin Peterson, he was a former heavy metal painter, so if anyone hasn't checked that out, then feel free to go and check that out. It's today's going to be a little bit less long, as a little bit shorter than that one. Kind of sticking around the 2-hour mark, I reckon, because although it was a fantastic stream full of loads of great information and everything, it was maybe a little bit long for this kind of format, but we're just trying some stuff out and seeing how it goes. So yeah, hello everyone in chat, hello. So yeah, the idea is I'm going to be painting some of my Golden Demon entry today. I've been doing a bit of progress on the squigs, and I've actually started on some of the goblins now. So this is one of the little snotlings. Some of you guys might have seen it on the Instagrams. Hello Drew, hey Stewie, hey Luke, Ramen, Reese, El Guacamole, Kador, Robert. Thought I'd quickly go through people. Hey, Steve. Right, so yeah, the idea is today I'm just going to get on with a little bit of painting on some of this stuff. And we'll see how we go from there. Right. So yeah, as you can see, I've actually painted this guy already. He's absolutely minuscule compared to these squigs. I'm not sure some people realize like how small he actually is. Just like a little one-piece snotling. The cheeks. You like his cheeks? I might get banned if I show too much of that actually. Right. So my special guest for today is actually Slayer Sword winning legend Gavin Garza, who recently won a Slayer Sword at the Golden Demon US. So, without further ado, I shall invite him on. Let me see. There we go. You're unmuted now.
Hello. How's it going?
So it's just a bit of like a chill chat and stuff like that today about miniature painting in general and all that kind of stuff. So there's no pressure. It's just chill, and we'll just hang out and I'll do a bit of painting. If there's any questions in chat, by the way, then please feel free to ask. Anything about painting or Golden Demon or why is Gavin the GOAT?
Yeah, I'm just chilling out here too, painting up this Skaven dude. Currently trying to paint up his little tail right now. Having fun.
I was thinking it'd be so cool, like in the future, if we could do like a dual stream type thing, and we could see kind of like bits and pieces of what people are painting. But maybe at some point today we could have a look at like little bits of what you've been painting. So you've been painting the new Deathmaster, right?
Yeah, I've been painting up that new Deathmaster. Haven't gotten much done this past week. I've actually been building some other stuff, but yeah, I'm working on him again today. It's a fun little model.
Nice. That is, yeah, I've seen a little bit of it already, and it's looking like super smooth. I love the sort of leather texture that you've got going on the back. Is like, yeah, I need to get that recipe off you actually at some point, because it looks really nice.
Yeah, it's a good one. I haven't actually I don't think I haven't posted that on Instagram. I haven't really posted much to Instagram lately, but yeah, I think I shared that on the Discord a while back if you wanted to show that at some point.
Cool. Yeah.
So yeah, working on his little tail right now, doing some simple base coats. We'll see how much more progress I get than that today.
What are you going for on the tail? Like a nice pinky sort of color?
Yeah.
Or yeah,
Exactly.
I love painting the tails on Skaven for some reason. They're just like, although you've got to like try and get the highlight around each sort of segment of the tail, they're still pretty fun. You can get like a nice transition going throughout the tail, and yeah.
Oh yeah.
Skaven tails.
Fantastic.
Question for Gavin: what's the best topping on plain tortilla?
Butter. Just butter.
Just
Don't need
butter.
anything else.
Just butter. So I'm actually going to be painting a little goblin today. So, sorry, what was that?
I said, anyone who says anything else is a liar. Or they don't know any better.
I must admit, I've never actually tried a plain tortilla with butter on, but you know.
It's okay, you're not.
I've also never had fresh tortillas, so you know.
Yeah, I saw the little goblin. I think that guy's looking fantastic.
He's so tiny. Like, I actually had to paint the entire thing with magnification pretty much, because I'm not even sure I can get in. I can get in fairly close with the camera.
Oh, so is he like a tiny goblin compared to the other ones?
He's a little snotling. There's basically, I think on the box art he's kind of like running right at the front. So he's front and center. So I wanted to make sure that he could probably still do the little bit of work, to be honest, like smoothing out some of the transitions. But like, yeah, he's just running at the front of one of the squigs, basically trying to run out of the path of one of the squigs. And then there's actually another one that's kind of like hanging off the side. I'll show you this actually. It's quite funny. So he sort of hangs off the top of the side of the top squig. He's just got his hands up in the air.
How many are there total on this thing?
So there's two little snotlings, 4 goblins on this one, because this is the one with the loon boss on the top. But technically it's kind of like 2.5 goblins, because one of them kind of like sits in front of the other one. See if I can position this, but yeah, one's like sat behind the other one, like clinging on for dear life. Yeah, it's a pretty, I really love this kit. Like, this the main reason why I picked this kit is just because it's one of the most fun things that I remember painting whilst I was there. I didn't get to paint the Loom Boss like version, so you know, it's just something that I could get done. It would be fun. I actually really want to like just own one, I guess, like a really nicely painted one. So yeah, that's the reason why I picked it.
Yeah, I love it. I love that like pale green skin tone as well. It's great. I love it.
Yeah, so the goblin recipe that we used for the box art, I think it was Tom who came up with most of those recipes. I did some slight modifications to it, so the base coat is still the same. It's still Nurgling green, but I think the previous one used like a wash, and I'm not a big fan of using washes a lot of the time, so I switched that out for a paint. So I've been using Inky by Darkness instead of Coelia green shade, I think it was. But yeah, I don't want it to be like, you don't think it's like too cold overall?
No, I think it's fantastic.
Yeah.
No, I love it. I absolutely love it. I think it's amazing.
Cool. I think it looks good next to the red as well. That's the main sort of reason for picking out like a colder color than what I'd normally go for. But yeah. Question for the goat is Gavin, or Garza? Can we get some serious questions in chat? What the hell's going on today? Yeah, so for the first shade, where is it? I'm not terribly organized today. I apologize, guys.
We didn't answer the question. It's Gavin with a B.
It's Gavin with a B. Gavin. It's Scavin because you painting a Skaven, right?
Yeah, thanks to Max.
So, I don't know where I've put this color now. God damn it. I'll find it. It's on my desk somewhere. Check behind the water.
Is Gavin still riding the sword lofting high? Yes, very much so.
Yeah.
Got the sword sitting on my kitchen table. Use it to cut up
Is it actually on your kitchen table?
It is actually on my kitchen table right now.
Did you even do anything with it once you got home with it, or did you just put it on your kitchen table and it's remained there ever since?
I took it out of the box.
So, yeah, I mean, I guess we should talk about that whole thing. You're probably sick of talking about it by now, but I guess we should talk about the whole Golden Demon saga of like your first ever outing to a Golden Demon, and I mean, probably like seeing high-end painted stuff in person as well, which is amazing that you managed to not only take home a trophy, but take home basically the best in the show, the Slayer Sword, on your first try, which is absolutely amazing. So yeah, I guess we should probably like start there. It's probably what most people are going to know you for, like is the Slayer Sword this year. So I guess yeah.
I think it kind of ties in with Drew's question as well. What made you decide to paint a skink? What was your mindset when doing it? Anything you tried or found challenging? Yeah. I guess I can just start off with why I wanted to enter, I guess, because I didn't plan on entering originally. It was actually kind of a last minute thing. That's part of the reason why I wanted to paint a skink, because I knew I didn't have a ton of time to paint. I only had like maybe...
Was it like 6 weeks or something like that?
It was a couple months, I would say, prior to the event. I bought my ticket late enough that all of the classes were booked. So I didn't get an opportunity to take any classes at Adepticon. Slightly disappointing, but it is what it is. But yeah, like I did not have much time to paint that thing. So I'm like, all right, I got to find something I like. And I have to know that I'll be able to paint it up to a high level by the time I actually finally have to enter it. And I knew I really liked that Underworlds kit with all the different lizard men in it.
Yes.
And when I was just trying to decide which one I wanted to do, I was thinking the entire group at first, but I'm like, there's no way I'm gonna finish the entire group in like 2 months. It's just not gonna happen. So I'm like, all right, I'll just pick one model in here. And I was originally gonna pick out the there's a skink priest in that set.
Ah,
And he's
yes.
holding up like the little orb, like an orb above him, and he's got like this helmet with like these feathers on it and everything. He's really cool looking. I like him a lot, but my problem, the reason I didn't pick him is because he has a helmet on, and I felt like if you kind of lose a lot of personality when you put a helmet on something.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to go with the other model in that kit, the one with the spear above his head, because he's just, doesn't have a helmet on. And I just, it feels like you get a lot more personality through without that. And I felt he was still in a pretty like heroic pose. I thought the pose was fantastic. So yeah, I went with that guy. I wanted it to kind of fit in with that kind of Games Workshop style, the kind of classic kind of skink color scheme. So I wanted to go with like a really bright blue on it. So I stuck pretty close to how you would kind of imagine skinks being in the I guess the whole Warhammer fantasy universe. So that kind of dictated most of the colors I chose with him.
Mm-hmm.
There's a whole bunch of subtle little things that I decided to do with him. Let's see. What was your mindset when doing it? Yeah, so there's also a ton of subtle little things I wanted to do on him. Like originally I wanted to do all of the like as an example, like the feathers. I was originally going to paint them all the same. But there was a ton of subtle little things that I wanted to do to kind of draw attention towards like the face of the model, because I knew that was going to be like the big kind of draw on him. So one of the things I did was the feathers. He's got some feathers under his right arm, and he's got some feathers on his kind of like crotch plate, right?
In fact, if I get a picture of this up whilst you're talking through this, it probably makes a bit more sense to people.
Yeah. Yeah, let me know when you have it up. There's a little bit of a delay in the stream.
Yeah, it should be up now.
Okay. So like the feathers on the crotch plate, for example, I wanted them to be a little bit more less saturated, I would say, than the ones under his armpit.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I still wanted them to kind of fit in with that whole. I still wanted them to look like feathers. So I was kind of looking at reference photos, and I saw that the classic ones, like the classic kind of yellow, red, and green feathers, they're much more akin to like those kind of macaws, right? They're macaw feathers is what the references were for those. So I was looking at different types of parrots, and I noticed that green parrots have like that kind of yellow to green transition in their feathers. So I used a bit of that green to kind of desaturate the yellow a little bit, and I felt like it just looked really nice. Like it still kind of fit in with the whole color scheme, looked fantastic there next to the gold, and it allowed the feathers under the arm to maintain that like high saturated yellow, so that way your attention is just naturally drawn to like that kind of mid area of the model, drawn upwards, and pretty much to the face and the head. Then you've got like the yellow eyes, which is kind of a very similar color to like the feathers going on as well. Exactly. I just tried to draw as much attention to that area as possible. So there's even on the frill, like the highlight on the frill, I have the brightest part of that down towards like the bottom of towards the face area, and the darkest part up to the top.
Up towards the top.
It may not be like realistic, but aesthetically speaking, it just diverts the attention exactly where I want it to be, right? There's even like really tiny little things, like if you notice like the little the little glint on the spear, the largest line on that is actually pointing down towards the face.
Yes.
Yeah, it's just one of those subtle little things where it's like it literally points towards the face.
Yeah.
It's just very subtle little details like that I was kind of really happy with how it all kind of came together.
There's lots of subtle stuff like that I don't think people notice like the first time that they see a miniature, but like there's a lot of thought that goes into it. Even some of my favorite stuff on it actually you don't really see in the photos as much. I think, and that's like the reflective line that's kind of under the spear is kind of like reflecting some of the colors from the feathers.
Yeah.
And then there's also
on the back, but yeah.
There's also some like subtle like purple shading in the scales on the back, like in the recesses of the scales. Actually, like in person, really like it's something that you notice. It's a bit harder, I think, for the camera to pick up. But yeah.
Yeah, no, it's really hard to notice in the photographs, but I actually glazed some pretty highly saturated like magenta in between all the scales, and I mixed it with like some ultra matte medium because I didn't want it to actually reflect much light.
Yeah.
So like that way the scales themselves are quite kind of satin, whereas in between the scales it's like kind of magenta, but it's like this really dull magenta, and it's just like this really nice contrast between the kind of glimmering, kind of almost shiny scales versus the dull matte finish with the magenta shadows in between them all. It's just a nice kind of variation of hue and finish that it just in person it's much more noticeable. But I was really happy with how that turned out.
I really love stuff like that when people like play around with the finishes on things, and that's, for me, that's one of the good things about using true metallics sometimes, is that you get like differences in texture across the miniature that sometimes you don't see in photos but you see in hand. And like sometimes I guess we've got to like try and realize what we're doing it for. If it's for a competition piece, then I mean, for the most part it's going to be seen in hand by people and judged in hand. Some of this stuff might not show up in photos, but actually in, you know, when the judges come around to seeing it, all that kind of stuff they're going to notice. So yeah, that's awesome that you managed to like to get all these different textures into it, really.
Yeah. I think Matt's saying that my volume could be a little bit higher.
Oh right, okay, let me sort that out.
Okay, can you do that on your end?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, trying to work out between two monitors. There we go. Okay, I pushed you up in volume.
Test, can you hear me?
How is that for everyone? I'm sorry, I've been messing around with a little bit with the sound because, well, particularly with the music.
Yeah.
It was a bit too far in the background, but
yeah, let me know if this is okay. If it's too loud or if it's too soft or whatever.
Turn this up a bit on here as well. It's
Okay.
better?
Alright.
Okay. Let me see what I can do. But yeah, sorry, carry on.
Sorry, Drew.
Texan.
Yeah, so I guess we could just keep talking about this a little bit. But yeah, there's some other subtle little things on there. Like I kind of wanted to keep that nice triad of colors on both sides. So I guess that nice triangle of colors. I don't know how else to describe it.
Yeah.
So like on the front, I used yellow in that triangle, so that way, like if you look at the feathers under his arm, on his crotch plate, and then the gold shield, and that creates that nice little triangle of yellow. Whereas on the back, the red scales, the red frill, and the red in the feathers actually creates a nice triangle on the back.
1 second, sorry.
Yeah. Let me know.
Oh right, okay, so yeah, we got like a triangle of colors. Yeah.
So like on the back, it's got that nice triangle of the between all the reds there, and it frames everything nicely. Or at least I'd like to think it does.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic, dude. Yeah. Actually, like seeing this in hand was like really impressive. That you managed. Yeah. Like, I think another thing that people forget about this is that it's so small. Like actually getting all of those blends into something that small, keeping it that smooth, and also like all of these transitions and stuff that you've got going on, it's actually quite a tricky thing, quite a tricky feat.
Yeah, and speaking of texture, like it's a little hard to see in the photos, but like there's like these subtle little texture lines that I put into the feathers as well.
Yes, I remember you painting these actually.
They are incredibly tiny.
Yeah.
And it took me a lot longer than I want to admit, because the thing is, they all have to be spaced identically, because if they're just random, it kind of loses the effect that I wanted.
So there's
So
no
like,
actual texture on the plastic there, or is it just
No.
painted on? Yeah.
It's all just painted on. I actually painted over a lot of the texture on the plastic. So I had to kind of matte down the little paint a little bit to hide some of the texture from the plastic. In hindsight, I probably should have sanded down the feathers, but I didn't. It worked out in the end, but I think I was kind of, it was a bit of an uphill battle. But yeah, all those little texture lines took me ages to do, because they all had to be straight. They all had to be evenly spaced. Yeah, it was it took like at least a couple days just to paint those little lines on all those feathers.
Mm. There's something that about the way that you paint skin that I just find awesome. Like I love the way you've got like the highlights in the recesses. It's really cool.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun too. You can't this model actually has a huge, and I mean massive, gap on the side of his torso there, like where
is it this bit here under the arm?
Yeah. It is massive. And I'm no, not actually. It's on the other side. On the underneath the arm that's holding up the spear.
Oh right, okay.
And so I had to. I gap filled that, and I was really happy with how I kind of like resculpted that kind of curve where that white line is.
Oh, so does it actually go along this line of his muscle here, like under his armpit? Yeah. Okay. How did you fill that then? Was that just milliput? Or?
It's milliput, and then I just took the time to sand it. I actually primed it afterwards, and like it didn't look as good, so I had to go back in, sand it down, and reprime it again.
Yeah.
And after that, it looked really nice. Just one of those small little things where it's like, it's such like a large kind of like bare area that like even just like a little bit of like texture or uneven texture or whatever from the milliput would have been noticeable. So it had to look perfect. Like
so, a bit of patience, unlike me sometimes, and just like waiting for it to dry properly, sanding it down, going back with a bit more, sanding it down again until you get it smooth.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But speaking of the other side, the arm where he's holding the shield.
Yeah,
underneath that area. I don't have any good photos of that area, but I couldn't sub-assemble this model. The only part of this model that was done in sub-assembly was the head. So this thing was fully painted, and I had to detail the underside of his torso there, underneath like the belt and the medallions and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And that was a massive pain in the butt, because I just could not get a brush in there. So it took me so long to paint that area. It's an area that no one probably even noticed, but I knew that if the judges were looking at this, they would notice that area.
Yeah.
And it had to look just as good as everything else, so I had to spend the time on it.
It's that kind of like attention to detail that, I mean, effectively got you the sword. Like if that's what it's all about, really, isn't it? It's like paying equal attention to all parts of the miniature, making sure that everything's as smooth as it can be. And
exactly.
Some of these areas are very difficult. I know, because I've been working on the squigs and like trying to get inside of their mouths and like get that as smooth as possible. It's been a nightmare. Not that I get it anywhere near as smooth as what you managed to do on this guy, but like, yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those things where if I notice it, I know the judges would.
Yeah.
I kind of have to put myself in their shoes, and it's like, if I were judging this and I look at this area, would I notice that it's not painted as well as everything else? And if the answer is yes, then I know I have to work on it. It's basically how I approached much of this model. I actually, the kind of the mindset I went into with this entire model was, if I were to enter a skink into Golden Demon, it would have to be amazing looking, right? Like, it has to be like the best looking skink in the cabinets, first and foremost. But B, if let's say my doppelganger were to join Golden Demon, and he painted a skink as well, and he painted the exact same skink as me, exact same colors, exact same methods and everything. But let's say he painted the arm that's like underneath the medallions and stuff. He painted that better than I did, and everything else was painted exactly the same. Who would deserve to win? Would it
That's
be
it.
him or would it be me? And I kind of went into that mindset with everything, every single part of this model. I had to think about that. Is if someone entered the same thing as me, but they did a better job of it, who would deserve the win, them or me?
Yeah.
And I just had to keep painting it until I eventually reached a point where I thought it couldn't be done any better.
Yeah, we touched upon this a little bit last week with Martin, and like obviously judges look for different things based on just what they like to see on a miniature, but like at some point, like you're saying, if it comes down to two skinks that are equally well painted, then at some point it's going to come down to which one has mistakes, which person hasn't paid attention to under the arms or whatever it is, right? Like that's it is a technical paint competition at some point, I guess. So, and this is, I mean, technically as well painted as anything could really be. I mean, I'm sure you're aware of like little bits here and there, maybe because you've spent so much time sort of looking at it and and you painted it.
I certainly don't think it's perfect. There's certain things on this I know I could have done a better job on. Even if I were to speak candidly, there's parts of it I just ran out of time with. I was painting this up until the point where I had to turn it in.
Yeah.
There are certain details that I know the tail, for example. That's one that I felt was just like it was a little too plain for my liking. I know I could have done a better job with that, but I just ran out of time. Even the base, I know I could have done a better job with. I was not happy with it. I literally didn't start. The base was built and everything, but I didn't start painting the base until about an hour before
I remember. Yeah.
the cab came to pick me up to go to the airport to go to Chicago. So this entire base was painted up in about 2 hours. Between
I remember being in a Discord call with you and you kind of like panicking at the time that you were running out of time to get the base done. So it's absolutely amazing that it came together so well in the end, and like I
was panicking. I did not think I'd get it done on time. I had to finish it in the hotel room, so I spent like another hour on it in the hotel room, like maybe 2 hours total, the entire base. I was panicking to get it done. But in the end, I think I could have done a better job, but for the time that I spent on it, I thought it came out all right. It is
at the end of the day, it's about the miniature, and that's like you want a base that's going to be kind of simple to a certain extent and frame the miniature, put it in the setting, in the world, and I think that it does that perfectly. So I don't think it's I think you did fine with the base and like yeah.
I mean, I guess in the end it worked out, right? It was just it's those little things, right, that you just think of when you spend like 150 plus hours on a skink, that you just think about the smallest details that most people probably wouldn't even think about, right? Yeah, I don't know. I'm always kind of a stickler for those details. Oh, someone was asking, has this model come to the UK? Actually, yeah, it's sitting. I think it's over in at Games Workshop right now, over at the Warhammer World.
Probably take a moment to go through any questions in the chat actually, and just yeah, so it'll be in. Do you know if it's actually in Warhammer World at the moment, or if they're planning to put it in there, or?
I could not tell you. I just know that they took it from me, and they said they're gonna put it in there at some point.
They've just taken it from you. It's ours now, Gavin.
Let's see.
The risk of overpainting the base is always there. Yeah, I mean, if you look at a lot of like winners from years past, like the base doesn't have to be anything. You know, the focal point is the miniature at the end of the day, and I think like it's a miniatures competition, and as long as the base kind of like complements everything that's going on with the miniature, I think that's.
Yeah, and of course, like you want the you want the miniature to be the focus, right? And
100%. Yeah.
I funny enough, like when I put the miniature on the base, I was a little worried that it was a little too stark, because like in real life, like it really stands apart from the base. I was worried that might have overdone a little bit, but I mean, it
Too
does.
stark in terms of it standing out from the base too much, or
Yeah, as in like the base was a little too desaturated compared to the model. I was a little worried about that. Again, it was a time thing. I couldn't really go back and fix it, so I just had to live with it. I think yeah, just one of those little things I think could have been done better on. But yeah, it came out alright in the end.
yeah, not too bad. Not too bad. Do you think it helped that you painted the base quickly? You weren't stuck in your head too much? I think that's a big problem. Like, certainly from my experience with this, is like just overthinking stuff sometimes. And did you ever find that was a kind of issue throughout the process, or?
Yeah, I mean, I knew from the start that the base was going to be the least important part, right?
Yeah.
I the model needed to look good, first and foremost. So I guess, yeah, in a way, the it not being stuck in my head did kind of help a bit, because it just allowed me to focus on the model.
You had a deadline. It's like, before I get on the plane, I've got to get this done.
Exactly.
And even in the hotel room, I guess you were.
Yeah, on the hotel room. I knew for a fact I wanted to finish the model as much as possible before I even touched the base, and definitely wanted to finish it before I got on the plane.
It's not golden demon if it's not last minute, right? That seems to be how it goes for a lot of people.
I thought people were exaggerating when they said that. I didn't think like that was the thing.
No.
Oh my god, no. The stress is real. It is unbelievable how stressful it is in the days before. Oh my god.
The judges have said before that bases are not really taken into account when looking at the miniature unless they detract or are not working with the theme. Yeah, I mean, you've still got to paint the base up to the same standard because it's part of the miniature, and like there was a couple of things that I saw at the US Golden Demon, actually, not naming any particular entries or anything else like that, but there was somewhere I feel like the base did detract in that sense. It was like they were kind of like vast bases for the amount of figures that were on there, and it just didn't really work as a whole piece. But I mean, I'm sure the painting on the miniatures was great, but it's just one of those things where it's a bit too kind of like sparse.
It's always a delicate balance between the base size, the amount of detail on the base, and the model itself, right? It's one of those things that you just kind of have to learn to you really have to learn to find that balance, right? So like you don't want those like vast open spaces on your base, because they do nothing for your model. They do nothing but take away attention. You want it to be kind of concise. You want everything to be in focus, you know.
I was actually highly considering changing the base on this, because the plinth that I've got, by the way, Tarot plinths, shout out to Tarot plinths, they're amazing plinths and bases that they do. I don't have to do very, very little to them whenever I get them, so and they cast out like this black resin, so they're just perfect. See if I can zoom out a little bit here. Oops, no, that's zooming in, David. So this is actually the plinth I've got for these squigs, and I feel like it might be a bit big. It's going to be difficult to show the entire thing. Let's see if I can zoom out even more. I have my camera obviously like super zoomed in because we were painting some goblins today, but so this is the bottom squig. It kind of sits here. But I don't know. What do you reckon? Because it's not too bad.
I think it seems to be a pretty good size. I mean, the squigs are huge.
Yeah.
And the actual like rock or whatever is not much larger than them.
Yeah.
So I think it might actually work pretty well.
I wanted to kind of leave a neat little line around the sort of outer edge and But I'm unsure whether I'll go with this rock in the end or not. I think it looks cool and everything, but I'll just have to. It's quite a big block of millipede actually. Yeah. But yeah, shout out to Taro. Awesome plinths. These are actually like hollow as well. It saves a bit on weight and yeah.
The real winner of Golden Demon
is Taro plinths. Yeah, they did pretty well, didn't they?
I know after Golden Demon, I bought a few plinths from them.
Yeah. Yeah, really nice. Not sponsored, but. Any other questions? Being tasteful, the amount of detail on the base isn't the easiest either. Yeah. Yeah, I kind of want to put like a load of mushrooms and things on this one, but I don't want to spend ages painting mushrooms if I can, you know, there's always something else to do on the miniature is the problem. Like something could always be smoother, right? You could always find something to like spend that time on the miniature. So, oh, look at this, by the way. This is my heavy metal interview. This is the Space Marine that I took to my heavy metal interview.
Tim.
It's rough as anything. I'm amazed. How the hell did I get a job? What is going on there? Let's compare it to a Primaris, actually. I've got these Ultramarines on my desk, getting closer and closer to being done. Yeah.
What's he doing on your desk?
What, this guy?
Yeah.
I just happened to have him. I think I found him the other day ago, and I was just like, oh, you know, it's just like memories of stuff. They actually sent me out a Space Marine to paint for my interview. I mean, this is 10 years old, guys. It cut me a little bit of slack. It looks great. Yeah, okay, Reese, okay. Yeah, so it was just a nice memory, I guess, of yeah, they sent me a Space Marine out, but it wasn't very kind of neatly assembled and stuff, so I just kind of like painted another one for my interview. But yeah, sorry, I just happened to have that on my desk.
No, it's good. It's good. I love those little Space Marines nowadays. A little on the shorter side.
It's so weird, isn't it? Like seeing them next to. I can't believe there's still people who prefer the old ones, but I mean, each to their own, I guess.
Yeah. They still have their charm. I mean, I gotta admit, like, you look at the Space Marine Heroes Season 1 stuff. Like, I love that stuff. It's just, it really does have a certain charm to it. That is lost a little bit when you go to the Primaris scale.
I think it's partially like a little bit of nostalgia as well. Like, I'm a big fan of like Terminators, even though I realize that they're not probably the most up-to-date looking thing nowadays, you know.
Yeah, I love the Terminator. I've actually got I have the Dark Vengeance Terminators,
oh, yes,
the ones from the 6th edition starter.
Dark Angels 2, yes.
Really want to paint up the Sergeant in that unit. I love the models that came in that starter so much. Yeah, finally got a hold of some of those, and I really want to paint up the Sergeant at some point. He was actually the first model I ever painted. He was the first model I ever painted. I kind of want to do a redo on him a little bit.
Talk about nostalgia there. Like that Dark Vengeance set was the first set that was like basically being launched after I started my heavy metal job. And so it was really cool to see that come out, and I think it was the beginning of like all that push fit kind of stuff. But it was also your entry to the hobby, right? Like that was the first thing that you got into, right? Was Dark Vengeance?
Yeah, so funny story. I remember buying that starter way back in the day, like way back when it first launched. And because I wanted to try painting some miniatures from it, and I think I took like the librarian from that set, and I built him, and I tried to paint him, and I did such a bad job at it that I immediately gave up. I was like, this looks awful. And like I would actually look at the box art and I was like, part of me thought that every single person who played Warhammer painted up their models to that level.
Oh no!
Like I can't play Warhammer if I have the worst looking models on the table. So like,
oh, well, I guess I'll just quit now.
It's kind of how I felt. So I kind of put it down and I put the box away, and I didn't touch it for years. It was just in my closet, wasting away. And at some point, I started getting really kind of bored, and I was looking for like a new hobby to do. And I was like, you know what? We're gonna pull this box out again, and I'm gonna give it another shot. And I started looking up some video tutorials. The painting tutorials were becoming a little bit more prominent, and they actually had the old Duncan Rhodes tutorials, and he had the Warhammer TV Duncan Rhodes videos. They had an entire series where he painted up one model from every single unit in that box.
Oh, amazing.
Including the Deathwing stuff. So he had painted up the I basically followed all of those tutorials. And for me, like, I get it, it was just, base coat, wash, and then like, layer on top of the wash or whatever. But it was just so accessible to me at the time, that like it just made it feel achievable.
That's amazing that Duncan Rhodes is your introduction to the hobby. That was really cool.
I know. Yeah, so I was he just made it feel so accessible. It's like I can actually do this. This doesn't feel unachievable anymore. It's like all I have to do is I gotta thin my paints. I gotta, just
Do you think
layers. It's not just, because back when I first, originally got the box, like I was just using paint straight out of the bottle or straight out of the pot and just layering it on thick because I didn't know any better, right? And it's easy to look back at that now and kind of laugh at it a bit, but I think like that's kind of where a lot of people are when they get into the hobbies. Like they just don't know any better. It feels so unachievable. And I think like little videos like that, and even videos like yours, like it just makes it achievable for a lot of people. They look at it and they see the process, and it's suddenly like, oh, I can do that. All I have to do is this, and I can achieve these results. And it might take practice, but I can do it.
I actually see people, well, I mean, it's evident with you, but like people improve so quickly nowadays just because there's so much like information available. There's videos, there's just like there's written PDF stuff. Like back like 10 years or more, it was very, very difficult to find anything like that. And I think I guess Duncan kind of marked a bit of a change in that as well, and like there was a lot more video content started happening on YouTube and other platforms. So yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
And I'm a little bit jealous that people that people have access to all this amazing content nowadays.
I see a few questions in chat here.
Yes.
Let's see. Where do they start? I believe there's a set. Okay. Hello, gents. Sorry, I joined late. I assume that you intentionally chose those colors on the skink based upon color theory, especially the blue and yellow. Yeah, for the most part. A lot of it was chosen because, there was definitely a lot of color theory involved, right? But I think a lot of it was also wanting to kind of match the old Warhammer aesthetic as well, because I really wanted it to fit into like that kind of universe. I wanted it to feel like something that kind of, I guess, a bit more modern take on the old fantasy Warhammer stuff. So I really wanted it to fit in with the whole universe, so I used a lot of colors that would be similar. Even if they weren't the exact colors used back in the day, I still wanted it to feel like it lived in that same universe. Let's see. When you guys do painting, do you find that you are consciously thinking about your color theory, or does it come naturally to you because you know which colors work well together? I think yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say there's still a lot of thought that goes into it. There's some stuff that kind of comes naturally. I mean, at a very, very basic level, just if you guys kind of try to remember this at a very basic level, put warm colors next to cold colors, very simply, and you'll end up with a much better looking piece overall. And a little bit of that goes into like this squig right now. So I'm deliberately doing the skin a little bit cooler on the goblins so that they contrast nicely against the skin. I've picked things like a nice teal to go into these spikes so that they sit out next to the skin. But you can play around with all of these different things, and like maybe you don't want a certain thing to stand out too much. Maybe you want it to like feel like it's more part of the model or part of the skin or something like that. So you do these bits a little bit more of the same hue. But I guess that's at a super basic level. There's a lot of stuff in color theory that if you really want to go into it, so yeah.
Oh yeah, it's also something that you just get better with time. Like you're able to kind of like ID stuff a lot faster. You kind of know like what colors will work better in other places, and and sometimes you do kind of end up painting yourself into a corner. I like to describe it where like sometimes you'll have a part of the model where it's like, I don't know what color to put here. Because I didn't think this far ahead. I think that happens to a lot of people. I think those are times when you have to know when to best use like your neutral tones as well, like neutral blacks, neutral whites, and stuff like that. Yeah, it comes with practice and just kind of your knowledge of where to place all your colors kind of improves with time. But it also helps to kind of plan ahead as well. Like if you have a big project coming up or like an army project or something, you plan your colors out in advance. Decide like what color you want like your parchment to be. Have more than one different color for parchment if you have like complex models. So that way, like if you have an area where warm parchment wouldn't work, have some cold parchment colors in case like you need that. Have your overall color scheme thought out. Planning out ahead, helps as well. Just so you avoid issues when you're in the middle of painting.
Hello, Simon. Is that a Simon that I recognize? Download YouTube tutorials and masterclasses were awesome. I learned so much from. Yeah, I mean, Daz is an absolute legend. So, hey, Simon. I think I recognize that, Simon.
There's another question here. I have a question for both of you. How do you be economical with the amount of time you spend on parts of a mini and knowing when to stop? There's a question in there somewhere. Yeah, I think that comes with practice as well. I remember when I first got into it, I kind of had this issue where like I would just paint the same part of a model and just keep going and going and going. And like I didn't know like when to stop or like when it would be finished. It's one of those things where like I think it just comes with practice. I nowadays I can kind of know when a part is done, or like when it's good to move on to something else. You just kind of have like a process that you develop. Like I know for me, like I have my color values that I want to put into an area, and for those who may not have that kind of who may need help, like when I talk about color values, I'm basically talking about my different colors that I'm using for my highlights and shadows, right? So like I know for a fact that on a piece of armor or whatever, like I want to go from my darkest color up to my brightest, and once I have achieved that and like I think the blends are good enough, like I'm just ready to move on to the next piece at that point. And like I don't really touch it much after that. But yeah, it's you just kind of develop your methods and you kind of ID like when you think a part looks good enough, and that just really comes with practice.
Are you very organized when it comes to painting? Do you paint a single kind of part to completion or like an area to completion? Like how do you go about starting a figure? Do you start with the skin first, or do you start with a smaller bit? Or
It really depends on the model, but a lot of times like I will just paint one part, like one section, or not one section, but like if I'm working on like a human or a skink or whatever, like usually I'll paint from I'll just start off with like something like the skin,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll paint all of the skin first. And I usually like to work inside out, right? So like the parts of the model that are hardest to reach, I'll paint those first. So that's usually like stuff that's underneath a whole bunch of armor, or stuff that's like really hard to access. Like you want to get that all done first, right? Because if you try to paint that last, you're going to get paint all over everything else.
Yeah.
So
working from the inside out on.
Exactly. You want to work from the inside out. So I always try to do that first. And then apart from that, it's just I'll try to tackle it section by section. So I'll work on the skin, then I'll work on like all of the leather at the same time, and then I'll work on all of the like metallics or whatever. I usually like to work on metallics last. I hear that's a bad idea from certain people, but I like to work on them last.
What's that, working on metallics last is?
Yeah, I think someone told me that they like to work on metallics first, because then you don't get metallics and everything at the end.
Oh, I've probably said that before. I've definitely probably said that before.
But yeah, I usually just like to work on metallics last. It's just, I don't know, I'm just used to working that way. But I think the methods and my kind of the way that I paint will also differ depending on the project that I'm working on. Like if I'm working on an army project, like I will do all of the base coating for like all of, like, let's say I'm working on Space Marines, I'll do the base coats on all the armor first, and then I'll like work on all of the leather pouches next, and all of the metallics for everything afterwards. So like I'll do like the individual, like this is more so like I don't have to put like a ton of different paints on my palette. I can just work off the same pots.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then I'll just work through every single model and paint up all of those details, and I just kind of assembly line it. Whereas if I'm working on a single model, maybe I'll just work on the skin in one section before moving on to the metallics in that same section or whatever. I'm a little bit more freeform when it comes to single models, like just depending on what I think would be easier or what I'm enjoying the most at that time.
So you have also painted armies as well then in the past. You're not just a kind of, I mean, you're still an extraordinary painter when it comes to like painting armies, I think, but like you've been an army painter as well as a display level painter.
Yeah.
How do you, well, I kind of know how you approach these a little bit because we've spoken about it before, but like, how is it different approaching a display piece to something that you're going to do for like an army?
So on a display piece, I know that everything on that model has to look good, right? Like, I have to pay attention to every single facet of that model. Everything has to be up to like a degree. You know, if it's going into a competition, like everything has to look amazing, right? But if I'm working on an army, I'm actually much more relaxed with it. I know that there's when you look at 20 models on a tabletop, no one's going to care about how one leather pouch on the back of one of the Marines looks or whatever, right?
Yeah.
What matters the most are the most eye-catching features on every model. So you need to be able to identify what is going to catch the most attention, and you need to devote most of your time for that. On Marines, it's usually pretty easy, because on Space Marines, it's usually the heads, it's usually the weapons, and swords, guns, faces, eyes, etc., etc. Like if that stuff looks good, that's all people really care about. Oh yeah, you're bringing stuff up on the screen. I'm seeing that
Yes.
now. But yeah, like on this, these are this heavy bolter, right?
So this is actually something for your Blood Raven army.
Yeah. So like if you notice like the armor on him, it's real basic. I did not spend. I think all the red armor was done in about 90 minutes. It's literally just like base coated, washed, and then I just do some like quick edge highlights on the most prominent edges. Like it's done really quickly because I knew I wanted to get this done for an army, right?
Yeah.
And then like that allows me time to focus on details that I know are going to catch the most attention. So on this guy, he's carrying a huge gun. So I know that the gun is going to be a focal point of this
Focal point.
model. So I decided to add like a little stripe to that, a nice gradient, nice little subtle gradient on the stripe as well.
Mhm.
Just something, and I like to do this with a lot of stuff as well, is like the stripe itself points up towards the face of the
Towards
model.
the face,
It
yeah,
actually,
it's
yeah,
clever.
I do that a lot on my models. I like to create these little directional lines that just kind of subtly point where I want the attention to be drawn. So on this model, that line points up towards the face, and the face is like one of the brightest parts of the model. So along with the gun, your face is also kind of focused on that area as well.
It's exactly what
So
you're
I want
saying
to
here. Like these legs are kind of like super basic. There's a quick kind of highlight there, a bit of shading, but like your eye is immediately just led to the gun, the face, like the yellow on the shoulder pads and stuff like that. So yeah, it's really clever the way that you've done that.
Yeah, exactly. Because that's when you look at an army, and you're gonna pick up like models in an army, you're gonna spend like maybe 5-10 seconds looking at them. Right? You gotta pass that 5-second point. It's like if someone looks at this for a few seconds, you want them to be wowed by it, right? They're not gonna spend 10 minutes looking at every single model in your army. So you want to make sure that you have that instant wow factor to them.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I like to achieve on army level stuff.
Yeah, I think it's fantastic. I think it works beautifully, really. I've seen these in person, and the one thing that like really stood out to me was just the heads. And I know for you tend to spend a lot of time on just the heads. I think you probably enjoy painting that area the most out of the entire model, right? As most people do.
I love painting heads. I love painting faces. And if I'm honest, I think that's a really good way to kind of practice. Like if you just do a lot of army painting stuff, just like spending time on those key features and making sure that those look super crisp is actually a really good way to kind of level up your painting abilities. Like even if you're just painting army level stuff, you can still get really good at painting as long as you focus on those like key little details.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I love the darker skin tones that you do as well. They're really, really, really nice.
Yeah, I really like experimenting with like different colors for skin tones as well. Darker skin tones are really tricky to nail. I feel like I've gotten a lot better at them, but I do enjoy painting various different types of skin tones.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Oh, yeah, you're going to the bottom of the Instagram.
There was one that I was trying to find. I think it was this guy actually. I think this is the one that you brought to the UK, and I just remember being very impressed by the skin tone on it.
Oh yeah. I wish I had I actually had a reference photo that I used for the skin tone on this guy, and I was actually really proud. Maybe it came out a little too orangey, but the skin tone I was looking at was actually very orangey, and I was actually very happy with how close I came to the reference photo that I was using. In the future, I probably wouldn't go that orangey again, but I still like how it looked. Yeah, I think I used something like not Troll Slayer, probably like Squig Orange is like a mid-tone, like something very orangey.
Like very vibrant.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, awesome stuff. Very nice. Is there any more questions in chat?
Let's see. We may have missed some. Masterclass.
It's about knowing your limits. Yeah, I personally, that's something that I always kind of struggled with, was knowing when to kind of call it a day on something like that. It's, and like you say, it's just a matter of thinking about where the focal points are and spending more time on those areas.
See, Baz is asking, have either of you guys just given up on painting a specific mini, as in just not seeing it through to the end, because as in you've painted yourself into a corner and you just can't see a way out?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's an easy answer. God. Yes, I certainly have. There are minis where it's like even like ones that I've gotten pretty far on.
Yeah.
And it's just like I've made certain choices on them, and it's like I do not like how this is looking one bit. and like sometimes you just get really discouraged from painting it, and it's like I'll come back to this later, and you never do.
Yeah.
Yeah, it totally happens.
If
I'd find it hard to believe that hasn't happened to most high level painters at least once in their lives.
it's difficult when you do something for a job, like in heavy metal, for example, like you don't have the option to not finish a project. It's just, yeah, sorry guys, just wasn't feeling it today. I'm just gonna start on the next thing, right? But yeah, I had something recently that I had to restart, and that was, well, not restart, I just kind of gave up on it, and that was Holger, unfortunately. Yeah, I just hit a bit of a brick wall with it. But sometimes you got to know when to kind of cut your losses and move on to the next thing, right? If it's for a personal project, if you find that you're getting just so fed up with it, then at some point you just gotta, yeah.
100%. Let's see. Do you guys paint faces first or last? I find I tend to paint them last. I usually like to paint them last. For me, it's kind of like the cherry on top of a sundae. It's like the part of the model that I enjoy painting the most.
Oh, interesting.
So I'll save it for last. I don't know. I just find it very encouraging to keep going and see it through the end. And once you put that completed face on the model, it looks so good. It's fantastic.
When you've got deadlines, you can't do that. You start off with the focal points.
Yeah, that's probably the best way to achieve it.
I was never able to do that, but I know that Max kind of, that's his like thing, is to get on with the sort of focal points first, and
I mean, it's probably a good idea.
The beginning of a project, you got loads of time, you're not in a rush. At the end, you've got like 5 minutes left to paint a face. Yeah.
Let's see, are there any other questions? Hey, what's up? Hi, hey, Oscar. So demons painted by Gavin when, if not done already. I don't think I've painted any demons before.
Any demons?
Have I? No, I don't think I have. That might be an interesting project in the future.
What about any of the new chaos stuff? Is any of that interesting to you?
Yeah, I actually like the I actually really like those new the weird ones. Is it the possessed cultist?
The weird possessed things.
Yeah, the ones with like the really bizarre anatomy on them.
The ones that we were looking at the other day ago.
Yeah.
Ah, yeah.
I love how those look. They look so cool.
Yeah, I didn't even know about those until saw them on the website.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe I'll think about painting them at some point.
After the skin.
After the scaven. They look intimidating, but I really enjoy how they look. Who knows? Maybe someday in the future.
Was there any heavy metal projects that I had to restart? There's been kind of bits and pieces that I maybe like stripped or started again. I think the only real project that I ever had to restart was when very early on when I started there. So I had a White Scar attack bike that I had to do for something. I think it was like I don't know if it was like a back of the box or they were redoing some of the packaging or something like that. I remember this. You remember this story. But yeah, basically I had to do a White Scar attack bike, and we had the new, is it Corax white? Ceramite white. I thought, oh okay, we've got a new white here, it'll be nice. I started painting the Ceramite white with a brush, and it started leaving kind of like lines with the like brush marks in it, and it's just I couldn't get on with that paint at all. I got a couple of days into the project and I ended up going and buying a new attack bike, because bear in mind I just started then, so I was kind of a bit nervous and didn't want to have to admit, I guess, that I'd messed up. Although I hadn't really messed up, it was just the paint wasn't behaving. That's my thing, and I'm sticking to it. So I went and bought a new attack bike out of my own money. I was like, right, I'm just gonna start again this evening in my own time and get this done properly. and I got it done properly in the end.
I just love it. They just go out and buy a new one.
Well, I mean, you work on site where there's like a store and stuff like that, so I mean, and stuff was like, you know, a bit cheaper because you're an employee. So I was just like, sod it, I'm just gonna do it myself and go and get it sorted.
No, I love it. I love it.
That was the only project that I've ever had to completely like scrap and restart. But yeah, there's always little bits and pieces, you know. The funny thing is, you know, there's quite a few projects where I've painted extra things that I didn't need to. Like on those, you know, the Blood Angel Terminators.
Yeah, the new ones.
New-ish.
I guess the Space Marine Hero.
They're probably
ones,
like 10 years old now, but yeah, new Gavin, yeah.
You know what I mean.
No, so not the hero ones, but the
Oh, okay.
the actual like multi-part ones. I did the ones with the shields and the thunder hammers, and I think I ended up painting a whole extra shield. I'm not even sure how I managed to do it, but I ended up blue tacking it onto my hobby lamp as a constant reminder not to paint extra stuff for completely unnecessary reasons. But yeah,
it's just sitting there collecting dust.
I've still got
One
it
day you'll
somewhere.
need-
I've still got that shield somewhere. It was a really nice painted shield. It was box art painted shield, just stuck on my lamp.
It's another question here. Sorry, been dipping in and out. Question for you both. Are there any hobby techniques or skills in particular that you'd like to focus on developing, improving, refining further? I don't know. What do you think?
Hobby techniques and skills in particular that you'd like to focus on developing, improving, and refining further. I don't know, just my like project management, shall we say? Sometimes my project management's not very good. Develop, improving further. I guess maybe like what Gavin was saying earlier, like focusing on those focal points and just kind of learning when to call it a day on some bits and not overwork stuff, or yeah, I guess that kind of stuff. What about you?
Oh, that's always a hard one too. But yeah, I don't know. Like it's not so much like I guess like I always just kind of want to try different techniques. Like there's always new techniques. Like I'll look at like all these different high-end painters, and there's so many different techniques that they use, different types of lighting and stuff that they use that like I think I would just like to incorporate into the way I paint. Like all these subtle little lighting tricks that they do. Not so much like not OSL, but like
Reflected
just
lighting
learning
and things
to-
like that? Or
yeah, like using like reflected lighting and all that. It just subtle little things like that that I'd like to incorporate while still maintaining like these kind of like bright paint jobs.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, because I really kind of like that really kind of bright, vibrant paint job look to a lot of models. But at the same time, like it can sometimes be harder to get like that more atmospheric look when you have that
Yes.
kind of style.
Yeah.
At the same time, though, I also think you can adapt ideas from that kind of atmospheric lighting into that bright, vibrant style. And that's something that I'm always trying to figure out and learn how to do.
Absolutely,
yeah.
I think you're right. I think there's a lot that even if you have a particular kind of preferred style, like looking at different influences from outside of that and seeing if you can incorporate some of that into it. Like, personally, I really like Maxime Secret Workshop stuff and like Albert Moretto fonts stuff, and yeah, they're kind of like painters that I aspire to take influences of and put it into my own style, sort of thing.
Yeah, I look at Albert's stuff and I absolutely love it because he does a lot of what I'm talking about, where it's just like it's super bright, it's super vibrant, but like he still has like cast shadows and stuff in his work. He still has like the reflected lighting. He still has all this sort of stuff. But it looks so natural in everything that he paints. I don't know. It's just one of those things you kind of aspire to, right? I absolutely love that style of painting.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's like I hold those people as kind of like the highest. I don't know, in the hobby for me personally. That's like something that I aspire to, I guess. Any other questions? Any other questions, guys? Giving up on painting? Yeah, I think we've answered that one.
Yeah, I think we're caught up on the questions.
We are caught up.
I think we are.
We've already gone for like an hour and a half, dude.
I know. You know what I've done? I've base coated the tail.
Yeah. I've base coated some black and started a little bit on the skin, but yeah.
Yeah, if we missed a question, feel free to repost it. So, just FYI. After you look at brush, are you looking to push the paint into the focal point of the highlight? That might be a question for you.
After you lick the brush, are you looking to push the paint into the focal point of the highlight? Yes. It's a bit weird, that one, because I don't it's difficult to answer because I do a lot of things kind of unconsciously. I've only kind of recently had to kind of analyze what I tend to do a bit more, because it comes kind of a bit, I don't know, it comes kind of naturally, I guess, after a while of painting. I'm looking to push the paint wherever I want it to be, basically. Because working with acrylics, you have a very limited amount of time before they start to kind of a limited working time, shall we say, and you got to keep the paint moving however you can, really. So that is why I tend to lick the brush a bit more, is just to keep things moving before it kind of dries. But I know, yeah, it's some people it makes them uncomfortable.
It's one of those things that I think, like, it almost feels like a natural development. If I'm honest, like, the more you paint, it's just something you start doing more and more. It's like one of those things where it's like, you shouldn't do this. I don't recommend it, but but it really helps.
It does really help, honestly, and there's a lot of painters that I know that do it. So
yeah, I know when I do it, I usually do it to kind of feather the paint a little bit. Like, I put like a very small amount of when I'm doing like highlighting or shading or whatever. I usually put like a very small amount of paint on the brush, and like I'll just kind of put it in the area that I want it to be, and then like I'll quickly like lick the brush, and then I just use that kind of empty brush, I guess I should say, to kind of feather the paint out.
Yes.
If I were to stick it into my water pot and then dry it and then feather it out, the paint would be dry by the time I do that.
Exactly.
Like, so you just don't have time to do it. I mean, without licking your brush.
You can like get your water pot like super close and have like, maybe I thought of a way of doing it, maybe like having a bit of like a bit of towel or something on your thumb so you could get to it like a bit quicker, but like it just seems so unnecessary when you can lick the brush, I guess.
Yeah, it's kind of like you're coming up with like you're trying to reinvent something that doesn't need to be reinvented. You know what I mean? It's like it's I think people get grossed out by it because they think that you're like eating paint or tasting it or whatever, but like you don't really taste it.
You don't taste it, and it's, to be honest, it's such minimal amounts, especially if you're working with glazes. The amount of actual like pigment on the brush is so minimal. Exactly. But honestly, it's not gonna do you any harm.
Nah, not at all. At least as long as you're using non-toxic paints, I should say.
Yeah, as long as you...
If your stuff says cadmium in the label, do not eat that. That's a very bad idea. I
feel like we always do this. Like the last chat that I had with Martin, we were basically going through things that you should and should not do with.
Yeah, don't eat leaded paint.
Don't eat.
It doesn't taste great. Snow. Not good for you. Very bad. What's your favorite sandwich? Ooh, I don't know.
That's a good question.
I was talking about this earlier, but I had a craving I want to say that's my favorite. I don't know if it's actually my favorite, but I had a craving for the other day, which was a peanut butter and banana sandwich.
Oh yeah, I remember you talking about that.
Peanut butter and banana.
I've never tried it, but I kind of want to. I feel like the saltiness of the peanut butter might kind of complement the banana.
Yeah, especially if you put it on toasted bread. It's like you get that nice combination between crunchy bread and the creamy peanut butter and the bananas and the salty peanut butter. It's fantastic. Love it.
What type of bananas do you get? Like fresh ones, or do you get like ones that have gone kind of brown and squishy?
I like the ones that are just starting to turn, like just starting to get the little spots on them.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
I don't like them like super, because you know the more they go, the sweeter they get. So I like them when they're just starting to get the brown spots on them, because I feel like that's the right combination between firmness and sweetness in them.
Welcome to the Infernal Brush Cooking Show, guys.
I was just thinking that it's like, well, this is now a show about talking about bananas.
There was a question by Baz, I think. Bit of a basic question, I know, but what new models are you looking forward to getting your hands on, be it from Games Workshop, Forge World, or anywhere else? And sorry, I just had a bit of an aneurysm as I was thinking about it. The thing that I was looking at the other day ago that I actually really want to paint is the new Glorfindel for Lord of the Rings. I just love that figure now. I've seen it close up. I don't know why, but yeah. I mean, it looks fantastic.
Teaser trailer. I saw that teaser trailer that Warhammer posted with that new, I think it's Underworlds. I saw the teaser.
Ah, yes.
Skinks. I saw that chameleon skink in there.
Wait,
I know.
Yeah, there was one, wasn't there?
I saw that image.
There's a new Lizardman Underworlds team, you reckon?
I think there's gonna be. I think that's what they were teasing. I saw that video. They showed
there's already a Lizardman Underworld team. What we want is a Lizardman army.
I don't know. I saw a chameleon skink, right? That's all I know. And if there's a chameleon skink, there's got to be more. There's more coming. So that's what I'm.
I still remember what you said.
They're coming. They're coming.
You're gonna paint a Lizardman army when the new Lizardmen come out, right? Does the Underworld's team count?
If they come out, if they refresh that army, I'm gonna start an AOS army. It's gonna happen. I actually have 1,000 points of Stormcast, so technically I already have a AOS army, but I don't like Stormcast that much. If I'm honest, I have no desire to paint anymore.
Did you paint them in the? You painted the Sonic Gold scheme, right?
No. I painted them as Celestial Vindicators, which are like the teal and gold guys.
Yeah.
I gave them nice Mars bases, so they have like that orange base to contrast against their teal armor. They look all right, I guess, but I don't know.
All right,
like I paint Space Marines in 40k, and I didn't really feel like painting not
AOS Space Marines
in AOS. Yeah. I kind of like something a little bit different.
Ben's ordered a load of the new Forge World Elf models. I thought you were saying that you weren't a big fan of the way that something was sculpted on them, but I think they're really nice models. I really love, that Glorfindel. Gonna have to get that. And whenever Elrond's out, I think I'll get that one as well.
Don't lick the brush if you're using Scale 75 artists. LOL, they taste nasty. Yep.
All scale, I think most Scale 75 that I've ever tried, it tastes really nasty.
Yep, tastes awful.
They need to work on that. Make them taste better.
Add some sugar to your paints or something. Just imagine you got your paints on your rack and they're attracting ants because they all have sugar in them.
They're already out, you just can't see them. The Kroot from the Kill Team, that's another one for me that I really want to get my hands on.
Yeah, those look good.
Really like to do a Kroot tutorial.
What are your tips on getting smoother gradients? That's a good one.
We could talk about techniques a little bit actually, because I know we've discussed it, at kind of length, in all the nerdy kind of details. But like what techniques do you use to try and, because that skink, for example, was one of the smoothest paint jobs I've ever seen. So what did you do in order to get to that point?
Yeah, I think the techniques that I use a lot, I typically use like a lot of glazing and stippling. I'll usually like base coat, like if I'm doing like skin tones and stuff. This is something I kind of learned from Max a while back as well. Is like you want to start off super bright. So you start off with a super bright tone and then you shade down. And then like in order to make sure like all of my gradients are smooth, I'll go back in with like stippling, and like I use micro stippling.
Hey.
So you don't want to be like haphazard with it and just like stab your brush into it, you actually want to make sure you're focusing like with the tip of your brush, and you are literally just kind of like almost think of it like painting like with the needle on a pin or something, right?
Yeah.
You're basically just putting those individual little dots, like dot by dot by dot, hundreds and hundreds or thousands of them or whatever, and you just use that and you build up your layers with those. And then in the end, you can go in with glazes and smooth everything out a little bit more.
Yes.
And then you just go back and forth with those various techniques. And if you give it enough time, you just get like super smooth blends that way. Takes a while. You get faster with it with the more practice you have. But yeah, like you can just get extremely smooth blends using that.
I love that technique. It's literally my new favorite thing to kind of do on stuff. In fact, I did a lot of it to try and get some smooth blends on these squigs. So anything that looks fairly kind of smooth on these, I pretty much guarantee that I did the same technique that Gavin's talking about there. Although not quite as nice as his skink.
Yeah, you can fool me. That looks pretty damn good.
Oh, thank you. Major props with, since I didn't know until this stream that you painted the skink Slayer Sword winner in TMM, since it feels like all pro painters use NMM. Any tips for painting TMM gold? See, I know that you can paint NMM, and I know that sometimes you do paint NMM. So what was the reason actually for using TMM for that piece?
So one of the reasons was like I really wanted it to feel, I wanted it to kind of be in that kind of, not so much like heavy metal style, but like I wanted it to feel like something that was like kind of a bit old school, I guess. I don't know how to describe it, but like I just felt like there's a number of reasons that I did that was one of them. But the other one was like I just felt like I felt like there just wasn't a lot of surface area on that model. It's such a small model, and I tried doing non-metallic metal initially on it, and I felt like the surface area for the non-metallic metal was so small that like looking at it in real life would just be it would be so hard to notice any of the detail that I would spend time on, and I just don't think it had a large impact overall. I thought that the finish from the true metallic metal, like the actual like kind of satin, almost glossy finish from the metallics, would have a much stronger impact in person than any non-metallic metal would on that model. Yeah, I could have gone with non-metallic metal, but I just didn't feel like it had the same impact as the true metallic metal did. And I thought that for something that needs to be looked at in real life, that made a much bigger impact.
It's an interesting choice, because I often, well, kind of get, not here, but get the impression that people tend to favor non-metallic for competition pieces and stuff like that. But I think you're right. Actually, like, non-metallic tends to look very good in photos where you can control the lighting and stuff like that. But in person,
well, I think it still can look great in like person and
absolutely.
Stuff. It's just that like I didn't think it was the right model for non-metallic metal.
I see. Yeah. No, I think it was a nice choice. It kind of goes back to what we were saying earlier about the different kind of textures on the piece, and like I actually really like that you chose TMM for it. I think it kind of fooled a lot of people as well to thinking it was NMM because of the way that you kind of shaded it and stuff like that.
Respects, yeah. It's because like I had to go a lot simpler with it because it's just like all the surface area for the metallics is so small that like I had to keep it really simple. Like I could go in and do like have it like, you know, add all that super micro detail in there, but like at the end of the day, I just didn't think it would look that impressive. I've actually made that mistake previously. I think on my Instagram, there's like I painted up like a skink helmet in like non-metallic metal,
Right.
and like it looks really good in that photo, but in real life, I just didn't
Yes.
think it had the impact that the impact that I wanted it to have. I just did not like how it looked in real life, and I just kind of abandoned it.
So you
It's
literally
just
like tried doing an NMM finish and decided to choose TMM
yeah, and
over that.
that helmet was actually part of the reason why I ended up using true metallic metal on the other skink as well, on the Slayer Sword one. I just did not think that non-metallic metal was right for that size of a model. I just didn't think it had the right amount of surface area to play with.
hmm I personally find that like getting a nice base coat with true metallics and then being quite patient and glazing your sort of shades over the top of that. And I tend to prefer kind of inks for that sometimes, maybe a little bit of contrast paint. I like to play around with like how matte and how gloss the finish is to the shade. What about you? How did you approach the TMM for?
Much in the same way. Like I think the hardest part about true metallic metal is just getting that nice smooth base coat.
Yeah.
So you want something that base coats smoothly. I think for that one I used Retributor armor from GW as the base coat. In retrospect, maybe I could use something else, but
Did you struggle
I
with
think
that or?
I did a pretty good job. I'll tell you what I struggled with. It wasn't the Retributor armor. It was the what was it, Auric?
Yes,
The
yeah.
brighter shades of gold from GW.
Yeah.
If I could go back, I would definitely use a different brand. If I'm honest, I'm not a big fan of the brighter shades of gold in that range. It is what it is, but I probably would have had an easier time if I used a different brand. But yeah, like I like to kind of mix some matte medium in with my shades as well. Sometimes I don't like the shades to go super glossy when highlighting the gold. I kind of like to matte it down a little bit, especially if I'm using like inks and stuff. But yeah, it's you got to get the right finish with the metallics. You don't want it to look too matte. You don't want it to look too glossy. At least in the shades. So it's a delicate balance.
You want that deep shade to kind of be quite matte, I guess, so you don't get any unwanted sort of reflections in there. And
exactly.
So the Skaven that you're doing at the moment, that's going to be non-metallic then? Are you planning to do that non-metallic or?
Yeah, I'm probably gonna do it non-metallic. It might be a mix, but I think I'm probably just gonna do it non-metallic. We'll see how I feel about it in the end. Let's see, I'm looking at questions in the chat. Gonna go back a ways. What do you guys think of the new Vamp model? I think he's called Kato. That's the Black Library one, right? Have you seen that one?
What's that? The I think we talked about it last week. It's the vampire.
I
Yeah,
think so.
he's very cool. Have you not seen it? Or?
Yeah, he's cool. I think I have seen it. I think I've seen people painting him up as well.
Yeah, I think a few people got it early actually.
Yeah, I've seen some great paint jobs from that. Yeah, he looks really cool. I don't really have plans of buying him, but I think he's an amazing model.
I was saying last week it would make a very good kind of squad entry. You could do him and maybe like a few other things from the Soulblight range. So I'll have to see. Maybe I'll go that one day, but I think I really want to do a Death Guard squad actually for the next Golden Demon.
Oh, Death Guard are pretty awesome.
Anything where you can get a bit of variation into the squad, I think is like quite a strong entry.
I think so, yeah. Kind of telling that story, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Let's see, someone's asking, do you remember how you did the Teal Stormcast? Some dude in Discord is asking. I wish I could help you, man. I painted those things years ago. I do not remember the recipe. And I have not touched them since. Yeah, sorry, man. I don't even think I think they were like a mix of like Vallejo paints and other brands and all sorts of crazy crap. So unfortunately, I don't really have an answer for you.
I think I actually painted one of the very early Celestial Vindicators. Might have been like one of the first ones, I think. And I couldn't tell you what I used now. I remember someone was asking in the Discord about it, but it's so many years ago now. It's tricky to remember that far back.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm really bad about keeping notes as well, so there's a lot of stuff where it's like, man, this looks cool. I just don't remember how it's painted.
I 100% need to get a notebook, like a physical notebook, not something on a computer that can get lost in like some file somewhere. I need a physical notebook and actually write down stuff again like I used to do. It's very helpful. Yeah,
100%. Need to track that stuff.
It's funny because I went back to ask, I think it was Cornell, who was a former heavy metal painter, how he painted the Deathwing. Actually, for Dark, and I can't remember whether it was Dark Vengeance. I think it might have been the Dark Vengeance ones or the ones after that. I think him and Anya did them, and he still had a notebook with all of the colors written down. And like back then, it was when they were just moving over to this new paint range. So they were all like an L number, like L blah 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 blah, whatever it is. And then he had like a whole reference for what these paints, you know, became later on. So like when they actually got their proper names and stuff. And I couldn't believe that he still had like all of that stuff. So being organized like that is that's 100% something that I look up to. Super helpful.
One day I'll be organized.
Yeah.
That'll come eventually. Let's see. How much time did you spend on the skink? Oh god.
Yeah, how many hours?
More time than I want to think about. It was easily like, it was probably close to 200 if I'm honest. At the end of it. I remember in the like week leading up to Adepticon, I was getting like 3 hours of sleep a night, if that.
Oh my god.
Like I took like a week off of work just so I can get it done. And I think like the day before I think my flight left on Wednesday, and I think between Sunday and Wednesday I didn't sleep at all. I think I maybe got like 2 hours of sleep in that entire time period. I was like in such a rush to get it done. But yeah, like I think 200 hours is probably close to the amount of time I spent on that thing total. Which is crazy when you think about a model that small. You think like, how could you possibly spend that much time on something that small? But like when you get into it and you're just refining everything, this time just slips away from you.
Yep. Yeah.
And in the end, like I think I easily could have spent another 50 hours on that thing, easy.
I know exactly what you mean. Like these squigs, even though they look smooth in places, like I know there's I'm aware of so many places where like stuff could be smoother. I could get the magnifiers out and like really go in and like try and find the imperfections and smooth out the transitions and stuff like that. It's almost limitless when you start to look at things in that kind of detail. I know like you work a full-time job as well, and well, probably more than a full-time job, doing a lot of extra hours and stuff like that, and doing a job where probably you're staring at a screen a lot of the time as well. So it must have been like a very tiring time, and I think afterwards that kind of probably caught up with you a little bit. You're like, oh, it's nice to get this done, but I'm exhausted now. And
I will say, when I got to the hotel room and like I laid down that night to like go to sleep, it was like one of the best nights of sleep I've had in a long time. I was out. I slept like a baby. It was so nice. Let's see. Stippling would be a great tutorial for the channel. Virtually no other YouTuber has covered that technique on that high end. Do you have any technique? I feel like you've done a tutorial on that before, haven't you?
I've done bits and pieces on the Patreon. Actually, I've mentioned it a little bit in this squig tutorial. So there is one going up on the Patreon. I'll see if I can cover that in future on just on the channel in general. So there are a lot of other painters who kind of cover something similar. So as someone mentioned earlier, like Richard Gray does a similar kind of like stippling thing. However, I guess it's perhaps slightly more refined, like sort of going in and being a bit less harsh with the application. But I think both methods work depending on what, you know, depending on what outcome that you want.
Oh yeah. It's I think there's a few different like definitions for like stippling as well. Like
yes,
in terms of like how people like to apply it. Like some people are like really just kind of like just stab your brush into it, and like that's their definition of stippling. But like when I think of stippling, like I know, like I'll look at Soper's stuff, for example, and I remember like I would blow his stuff up on a 4K monitor and look at it and try and decipher what he did, and I did what I would try to copy what I think he did. Yeah. And basically you want to be like a lot more refined than you might think when it comes to stippling. Like you want to focus still on using the tip of your brush and just basically almost going like pixel by pixel, in placing like the highlights down and getting everything looking just right. It takes a little bit of practice, but it almost it's actually surprisingly forgiving.
Yes, I think that's the thing that I like the most about it, you know, is it's so yes, it can take a lot of time, but it's very reliable as a method to get to like a smooth transition.
Exactly. Like you can go back and forth with it really easily. It's really easy to fix mistakes. It's fantastic. I love it. It's honestly just one of those techniques that once you kind of realize how to do it, like you can just kind of sit back, everything becomes much more less of a hassle. Like sometimes, like if you're glazing certain areas, like especially tiny areas I should say, like you can sometimes like have issues where you just can't get that glaze to look right. But like if you just stipple the glaze in there, it's really easy to get that like super smooth transition as long as you're patient with it.
So magnification really helps as well, doesn't it? It's like it
100%, yes.
Even though it might not be kind of visible when you sort of look at it without magnification, that's kind of what you want in a sense. You're able to see all like these tiny little kind of imperfections in the transitions and just like barely kind of visible stuff, but
yeah, exactly. Let's see. Do you feel it was a risk? Where'd that question go? Do you feel it was a risk having used true metallic metal on the majority of the metals and then non-metallic metal on the tip of the spear? I assume that's on the skink. A little bit, I guess you could say, but at the same time, like I wanted the tip of the spear to feel like something that wasn't exactly metal, like something that was like
kind of more of like it as being obsidian or something like that, right?
Yeah,
like,
more of like an obsidian, yeah. And because like it wasn't like metal, and that's also the advantage of using true metallics as well, is that like stuff that you want to be like other textures can kind of, you know, it doesn't look metallic because your metallics have a different finish on them. So I would want it to be more of an obsidian blade, which is why I went with that kind of like you know, non-metallic metal shine, I guess you could say, on it. But yeah, that's I guess it was a bit of a risk, but at the end of the day, I thought it looked pretty aesthetically pleasing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of I thought it looked nice, and maybe it's not realistic, but at the end of the day, I wanted it to be I didn't really care too much about realism as long as all the paint job was kind of grounded, you know. It existed in the universe that it was in, you know what I mean?
I think that's perfectly fine as well.
Realistic.
Realism,
as long as it looks believable.
Yeah, like you set out with that goal in mind of like realism's not the overall goal, it's to make it aesthetically pleasing, and that's I think what you succeeded in doing, you know. It's not always the end goal is not always to have a realistic sort of paint job, I guess.
Exactly. Do you guys have a tool / product that you feel isn't used by a lot of people that should be? Magnifiers. Do not be afraid of magnifiers.
Yeah.
Magnifiers are awesome. I feel like there's a weird stigma against people or like magnifiers in general. No, don't be afraid of magnifiers. They are amazing. They will level up your painting.
Absolutely.
Yeah, like 100%. Let's see, any other questions? I'm sure I'm missing a ton here. Let's see, follow up. Let's see, when they called your name for the Slayer Sword, were you afraid that you'd finally fallen asleep and it was all a dream? A little bit. I think I was a little, I was far too, I felt like the pressure, the tension in that room was insane.
Oh,
Like
wow.
everyone was like
Yeah.
kind of on the edge of their seat, excited to see who had won.
Mhm.
It was such a cool experience. It like honestly, like that whole kind of ceremony was really cool. I've never been in kind of like that setting where everyone kind of has like everyone like has so much admiration for each other,
Yeah.
and like everyone was kind of rooting for each other. Like everyone knew like how much hard work everyone had put in, and everyone just felt so genuinely happy for all the winners, because like you knew that they had worked really hard to achieve their goals, and you have that kind of mutual level of respect in the audience. And yeah, I don't know, I went really off topic there, but I just
No,
wanted to
dude,
say
that's awesome. Like, that's really
how
that
cool
is
of
so
an experience
wholesome.
it was. Yeah. Let's see, any other questions?
I just remember like going back to that moment, because obviously like we hung about in the Discord probably since I don't know, in the past year and a half or something like that. And like obviously a lot of people in there familiar with you, familiar with your painting and stuff like that. You were relatively unknown to the wider sort of miniature painting community, I guess, and until the sort of Slayer Sword event. But it was just such an amazing atmosphere, and thank you to the Golden Demon Compendium actually for live streaming that, because without that we wouldn't have had that same memory of you know, there was probably a few of us sat in the Discord watching you go up on stage, or watching you first get a gold and then watching you like take best in show basically, and it was just such an amazing experience to see that happen, and it was kind of surreal for us as well, like watching all that happen, I guess. But yeah, that's all I wanted to say on that. It was awesome.
Yeah, thanks, man. This is now a wholesome stream.
It's a wholesome stream, guys. We talked about banana and PJ sandwiches now, or peanut butter sandwiches.
PJs, respecting everyone's work. It's a great wholesome stream.
Oh god, we'll be going for a while now as well. Like, let me know if you do have to go, or if you don't. I'm good to go for a little while.
We got some more questions as well.
Nice.
Talking about refining, what sort of things do you guys see yourselves getting back to and touching up, and how much time do you spend on that part? I know for me, when a lot of times, like, I guess I would just go back to the skin because we were just talking about that. But like, I worked on the skin on that thing at first, right? So like, I painted up all the skin on that, and then I went on to everything else. The problem is that like, everything else is basically base coated with black at that point. So like, the skin looked really vibrant at the point that I had finished, and like, it was nice and smooth and everything. But like, once I started painting everything else on the model, suddenly like the skin was looking really flat. The highlights weren't nearly as high as they needed to be. The shadows weren't nearly as dark. It was looking like really boring. So like, even though I had already spent a ton of time in the skin, I actually went back afterwards and I basically almost repainted it afterwards. Cause I just spent so much time on it afterwards. So it's just one of those things where like, you can't be afraid to go back and repaint sections of the model. Especially if you're doing a competition piece. Like if there's something that like you see later on in the paint job that like you need to do a better job of, it's just you have to go back and you have to repaint it. Like it's just that if it bothers you and you think it looks bad, like chances are the judges are gonna have the same opinion. And that's just the mindset that you kind of have to have for competition pieces.
Yeah.
You kind of have to trust
absolutely
your
right.
gut.
The process of constantly kind of refining stuff, going back and forth, and just, yeah.
Yeah, generally speaking, if I look at something that I painted and I think something doesn't quite look right, I know something doesn't look right. You know what I mean? It's like it's just a matter of finding out what needs to be improved. Because yeah, if something doesn't look right, I know for a fact I have to fix it. See, David Caldwell does amazing stipple work. Yes, he does. David Caldwell is amazing. Love his stuff. Check out Soper's blog. He's got some good stuff to read. I have read his blog. He's awesome. Soper's the OG. Let's see. Sounds incredible. Do both of you paint with magnification? I do. I don't always paint with it, but when I'm doing like any sort of like fine detail work or whatever, yeah, they basically just stay on.
Yeah.
I will say, like, if you're used to it, like if you get, like, I have used it so much in the past that I am very used to using it, and like the types of goggle or the glasses that I have are so lightweight that I can just keep them on for hours and hours, and like they don't bother me at all. Yeah, I can use them for hours on end, and they no longer bother me at all.
Yeah, that's a good bit of advice actually, is like pick something that's going to be comfortable for long periods of time, and it might not be the most expensive pair of magnifiers, but like just pick something that's very basic. If it's got a light that's kind of detachable, and you can remove to like save a bit more weight, because it's going to be on your nose and your ears like for that amount of time, or for long periods of time. And it took me maybe a little bit of getting used to, but it wasn't too bad, to be honest. And very much like you, I tend to use it for like detail work. I don't wear it the entire time, but like if there's any bit of like finer detail work, like probably right now actually, like doing some highlights on goblin faces and stuff like that, I guess.
Oh yeah, I love them. Can't go back. they're amazing. Ooh, I'm loving that how that goblin's looking.
Oh, thank you.
You made far more progress than I have.
It's always like yeah, progress on the stream is always a little bit slower, guys. It's just tends to be how it is. Kind of getting lost in that conversation and the chat and everything else, so yeah, not doing too bad.
Yeah, I think you have a lot more experience with that than I do. I'm just over here reading chat.
The chat interaction is like the biggest reason why I kind of do this, though. It's just great, like people being able to ask questions in real time. It's just, yeah, very helpful, I think.
I always struggle with the blurriness that comes from magnification. I struggle with getting the focus right. You kind of have to find like the correct distance to hold the model from your face. That's kind of the hardest part, is like finding that. But yeah, like I usually keep the model like really close to my face, if I'm honest.
Yeah. The focal distance on the 3.5, like I personally use the 3.5 times, anything with a 3.5 times lens on it, zoom, so that's usually the maximum that they kind of come with, because you might as well, right? But they're like super close. I think their focal distance is probably a couple of inches at most, so.
Yep, I keep them really close. So like I kind of have my I usually keep like my elbows like on the what's it called, the arms of my chair. Like and then like I try to rest like my wrists or like the my forearms like on my table.
Mhm.
And then, you know, it just kind of helps me keep everything nice and steady and helps me keep the model close to my face. Yeah, I don't know. It's about finding a good setup to keep the model like that close to your face while also maintaining that focal distance. And, you know. Would you paint 100 duck-sized horses or one horse-sized duck?
See, this is the questions that we need more of. This is the heart of the matter.
You're talking about army painting versus display painting, all right? So 100 duck-sized horses, that's army painting. One horse-sized duck, that's display painting, all right? What would I rather paint? 100 horse-sized ducks. Oh wait, no, that doesn't answer that
Wait,
question.
what?
I kind of messed that up a bit, didn't I?
Not the easiest question to answer.
No, 100 duck-sized horses, because I don't have to focus on each individual one all that much.
Why are they duck-sized horses? I'm confused. Specifically duck-sized.
It's an old joke. Have you not heard that joke
I've
before?
not actually heard it, no.
Like, would you rather fight 100 duck-sized horses or one horse-sized duck?
Oh, okay.
I feel like the horses would be easier to win against. Because a one horse-sized duck, that's basically a velociraptor. Like, you're dead. I feel like you'd have a chance against the horses. I might try this stippling on the Orc War Boss I've been working on. His skin shade to highlight is very stark at the moment.
Yes.
Yes. I love... Yeah, stippling on skin is amazing.
This might be a bit dusty now, but I stippled this. Oops. Let me try and get that in focus. Yeah, all that skin was like stipple glazed. So all this here, just like lots of fine little dots with magnifier. And that's, you can, if I try and get this zoomed in super close, you might be able to see a very slight texture there. God, it's so dusty, this. Excuse me, sorry. Yeah, you might be able to see a very slight kind of dotty kind of stipply texture on it. That's basically just like lots of tiny little refinements.
Yep.
Cool.
It's
You zoom out, you don't see all those tiny little dots.
Yep. And without the magnification, it just looks super smooth. It's a very satisfying technique as well.
It is very satisfying.
I've considered getting dental loops. Is that what that word is?
Mm-hmm.
What dentists use for magnification. I imagine they're very good with focal length. Honestly, when it comes to magnification, the cheaper the better. You want something that's like really lightweight. Like, because you have to remember you're going to be wearing it for like a long time. So you want something that's like super lightweight, and the heavier they are, like the more fancy they are, like the more uncomfortable it's going to be.
In all honesty, just get a cheap pair. I can link a very cheap pair. In fact, it should be in the Discord already if you want a reference for the sort of thing to get. I've tried several other ones in the past year or so, and this just super cheap pair. I mean, they're also easy to replace. If you ever like scratch the lenses, it's like 15-20 pounds maximum to just get a new pair. Yeah, I honestly think those are. Also, I don't really think you need anything further than a 3.5 times kind of zoom. I don't think you need anything too kind of close, because you'll kind of won't be able to see it when you just look at the miniature with your normal eyes.
Exactly.
As opposed to your magnified eyes.
Let's see. So speaking of army painting, what army from any GW game would you paint 2,000 points of? Let's see. I know for fantasy or AOS, Seraphon. Like if they come with that new Seraphon range,
Gavin
Painting up
is
some lizard men.
a lizard man through and through.
It's happening. That's gonna happen if they come out with that. That's gonna be like my year-long project is painting up an army of lizard men. For 40k, if I had all the time in the world,
Oh,
like
I know what you're gonna pick.
time, if I could freeze time and just focus on painting it, it would be Gene Stealer Cultist. I love Gene Stealer Cultist. I think it's the coolest 40k range. I don't think there's anything that looks cooler than it.
I'd kind of agree, actually. I do have a soft spot for Death Guard and Orcs, obviously.
Yeah. And there's there's just, I don't know, there's so much, the cultists, they have so many cool vehicles. I love their kind of like guerrilla warfare, like kind of aesthetic that they have, and to their army. It's like all the repurposed kind of mining gear. Like it's their armor, their skin tones, like everything is just so cool on them. I love them.
The vehicles, yeah. You like the mining
like,
vehicles?
What's it called? The buggy that they have. I can never remember the name of it.
Well, the actual. Oh, I know the one that you're talking about. Yeah, it's like a dune crawler thing, like a
I think it's called the Dune Crawler. It's probably
Ridge something.
Ridge Runner. Yes, it's the Ridge Runner. Probably my favorite from an aesthetic standpoint. It's probably my favorite looking vehicle in 40k. It just looks so cool.
I really like the little bikes and the little quad bike thing as well. Actually,
yeah, the guy with the astronaut helmet on the quad bike. I love that dude.
How do you feel actually about the new League of Votann stuff and like that new vehicle and stuff that's been shown so far?
I'm a bit overall I really like the army. I'm a bit mixed on some of them.
Yeah.
I think the moon buggy I'm kind of like about, but like the like hover bikes are so cool looking. And I think like the basic troops for the Votans look really cool. There's some of them that I'm kind of iffy on, but like I think overall, like if you put them all together, they look really cool. Overall, it's an army that I'm really excited for, especially when they eventually add more and more stuff to it. I also want to see some more of their hero units. I think they've only announced like whatever their captain equivalent is for that army. I would love to see more like elaborate character units for that army and see what they come up with.
Very much like you, actually. I was a little bit iffy to begin with. There seems to be a little bit confused kind of aesthetic in places, like a little bit mixed aesthetic, I guess, or just like things that don't feel like they kind of belong together. But actually, I was looking at the bikes the other day ago, and they've like really grown on me. I really want to paint one of the bikes now. They're really cool.
I actually really like the hover bikes that they have, the trikes or whatever. I love the callback to the old trikes from Rogue Trader or whatever it was. Because back when they had the trikes back then, it's just kind of like a modern take on that, and I think they genuinely look great. And like I think I've discussed this with someone else, but like I love the fact that they actually have like the trench coats. The bikers have the trench coats.
Yes, yeah.
I love it when models use like that kind of contrast between organic and inorganic material. So when you have like models that are wearing like coats or whatever, while riding like bikes or whatever, and I think this is part of the reason why Space Wolves look so cool as well, is like they have a lot of fur and stuff on their armor, so you get that really nice contrast between materials. So you get like that organic material from the wolf pelts, along with the inorganic material of their armor. And they have a lot of that going on with the bikes, and I love it.
Hey Goblin. Good question actually. What's your favorite black and white paint? These are my favorites at the moment. I'm using a lot of AK black and white, the intense 3rd gen ones. These are my go-tos. I just love how smooth the white is. I've really been meaning to try the Chimera ones as well, but yeah, sometimes getting hold of those is a little bit tricky. What about you, Gavin?
I kind of agree. Okay. I used to use a lot of Chimera white. But ever since I started using AK White, I just can't go back. AK White is just amazing. I absolutely love it. And AK Black is just like, the finish in it is almost perfect. Again, I used to use Vallejo Model Color Black a lot, and I still think that one's really good, but this one's just kind of perfect. I love it.
Yeah, I don't get that normal kind of like chalkiness that you get with the white paint either. It seems like super smooth all the time. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's even like, it's not too bad to, well, it's not the best base coating thing. You're never gonna get like super smooth base coats with just pure white, but like if you want to do like freehand or whatever with it, like it's really nice for that.
Yeah. Oops, I'm off screen. Any other? Like Adam with the AK as well. Yeah, there's a few like odds and bits that I use of AK paints, but not for everything, obviously. But
no, I think the black and white are the only AK paints that I use. I actually find that generally sticking to one paint range is actually pretty helpful. Like I've been sticking to like a lot of GW colors lately, and
yeah.
In terms of like finish and stuff, it just helps maintain like that consistent finish across the board. So, like I don't have to rely on mediums and stuff to get everything like to be the same finish. Like I think back in the day I used to mix like what was it, scale 75 paints with like Citadel paints and stuff, and the finish on that was like super inconsistent because scale paints are just so matte compared to like the satin finish on GW paints.
So it's really noticeable, I guess.
Yeah, it can be. Sometimes you get like a really chalky finish as well. Like it'll just look like really kind of patchy. Like especially on base coats and stuff. But yeah, like you don't really get that if you just stick with one paint range.
Like kind of like you were saying earlier though, with some of the bits on the squig, you could play around with the matte result, right? And like maybe one area you want like to be super matte and kind of different to the satin finish of GW paint, for example. So you could use a little bit of like scale 75. I think someone mentioned that to me. I think it was Paolo mentioned that to me for like rust and kind of like verdigris and stuff like that. Maybe you want more of like a matte finish. So I need to get around to trying that, but
yeah, 100%. Like, because if you look at like reference material and stuff, rust isn't glossy, right? Like rust is like super matte, like in real life. So like having like that kind of that really kind of matte finish on their like oranges, or like their, I guess, orange oxide colors, it's just really nice. Especially for like those weathering effects and stuff. In the same vein as well, like if you can look towards other paint ranges, like anything like super satin or super glossy or whatever, is great for like oil streaking and all sorts of stuff. So that way you don't have to rely on like enamels and stuff. If you want to do like weathering, you can actually have that difference in finish just based on what paint range you're using.
And then there's different mediums that you could use as well too.
Exactly. Like I've used that ultra matte before.
The AK ultra matte,
yeah, AK ultra matte before. I used to rely on it a lot. I've been using it less and less as time goes on though. I kind of used to fall into that trap of just airbrushing it onto everything, and I think nowadays I've kind of learned that I like to avoid doing that, because you tend to kind of lose a lot of those interesting finishes. I think it has its place, like especially like if you're doing like boss painting and stuff, where you need everything to be like that super flat finish, especially if you're photographing stuff.
Yeah. Do you think it works for non-metallic a lot more?
I think it does. It depends, right? But like I think it can work well for that non-metallic finish, because like the thing with non-metallic metal is like you need it to not reflect any any of the natural like light in the environment that you're holding the miniature in. Like it needs to be convincing, and if it's too glossy, it looks weird. So I think having like that super matte finish does help out with that. That's it though. I think having like much more satin paints in the highlights can actually make it look a little bit more vibrant. Because if you just use like ultra matte across the board on it, I think it really kills your highlights. Because you really do want to maintain a lot of like your kind of a little bit of that satin finish in the highlights. I think that helps out a lot.
Macarius orange is amazing for rust. Ah, I've got some of that actually. That's a good shout. Do you love some of those foundation
It's fantastic. I've heard good things about P3.
P3, yeah.
I've never tried any P3 paints before, but I've heard good things.
Thamar black, I hear people going on about a lot, and they're metallic as well as meant to be decent. I find it difficult to get hold of them nowadays. I used P3 before I joined Heavy Metal, actually, probably like 10 years ago, and it seemed a lot easier to kind of get hold of. But
do they still make P3 paints? That's probably a dumb question to ask, but I don't really know.
Yeah, I think so. But probably Element and...
Yeah, it's not a brand that I've heard much of lately.
I always use GW unless I find a better alternative with better coverage or a nicer finish. You know, one of the proudest things that I've done recently is to make a better covering Rakarth flesh. Oh, it's amazing. I need to make up like loads of pots of it now because it's yeah, when I was painting the Skaven figure, I needed to figure out a way to get the same kind of like tone as Rakarth, but a better coverage, a smoother finish, and came up with something that was really nice.
You're using that AK white as like a
base, the AK
right?
white,
Okay.
yeah. I think that's what kind of like
white.
made it so much smoother, you know. It's just,
I think so. It just works so well.
so you can find the recipe for that on the Discord. I think it was something like AK white. There was some grey in it, so like an Administratum grey, and then Gorthor brown and Baneblade. You mix all those together in the right amount, and you end up with basically a really smooth Rakarth. I've always struggled with that color. I don't know what it is about it. It's just super chalky. There's something very rewarding when you figure out like a recipe for something that's been bothering you for years that you can't get a smooth coverage.
Oh yeah. Let's see.
I need to work on Pallid Witch Flesh now.
Drew saying mechanic is
Tyrannus.
orange. The old foundation is amazing for rust. Are the old foundation paints, are they like much more matte?
I think some of them were, yeah. Yeah, I think some of them were. So that's actually a good shout. I might actually have to give that a go. I know they're very difficult to get hold of now because they're not made anymore, but I've got a few of those old foundations. But some of my favorites from that foundation range was like the skin tone was really nice. The pinky skin tone, I've forgotten what it's called now. And then there was Deneb Stone. Oh, Deneb Stone was basically like Rakarth or Pallid Witch back in the day, super smooth. Quite matte.
Yeah,
okay.
I have literally never used any of the foundation paints. What was like their initial intention with those? Are they just supposed to be like base coating, like really high,
yeah,
really opaque paints?
I think they were basically the precursor to like the foundation paints now. So a little bit better. Like, well, they had very good coverage actually.
Do you mean like the base paints?
Yeah, sorry, what did I say?
The foundation paints.
Oh yeah, yeah, the base paints. Sorry, yeah.
I was like, wait, do they still have foundation paints?
I wish.
Am I just a fool?
I wish. If only we could just keep the best bits of the old Rangers and keep the new bits of the best bits of the new ones.
Have you argued about rust and verdigris on the same metals yet? No, we could. Or not.
Verdigris and rust on the same. Who brought that up? Who started the controversy?
let's see. P3 Coal and Thamer Black are wicked. I have. Oh, you know what? I do have a P3 paint. I have P3 Coal. I've used that before. It's like a very kind of like bluish kind of black. It's almost like a darker incubi, if I remember correctly.
Oh, okay.
That's a really nice color.
I'm a big fan of incubi.
That one before. Yeah. Let's see. Again. Yes, I do. Not on Twitch. Correctamundo on YouTube.
And YouTube for now until probably until after Golden Demon, basically, Serranis, and then try and get back on the whole Twitch thing. I do love Twitch still. Thank you, Warden. Did you struggle using Citadel Whites when you were at GW? Yeah, basically that's what I was talking about earlier. Is I messed up an entire project because I was using Citadel Whites. Yeah, I think I just wasn't used to how they behaved back then. But...
They were formulated to be almost a one-coat thing for base coats, so thicker paint. Feel like more pigmented. They feel a bit more like Chimera paints, but with acrylic medium agent in it. Oh, okay. Like, see, that's the kind of paint that I really enjoy using. Is like that super like thick, super pigmented paint. It's like, it's so easy to use. Like, I don't know, like stuff like the Chimera paints are a good example. It's just like you can thin them down however much you need them to. It's like if you have like the layer paints sometimes, like sometimes they're a bit too thin and they can be a little troublesome if you want to base coat with them. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I really like those. I probably really enjoy those foundation paints.
Oh, have you never used them before?
I've never used them before.
Oh, I guess they were like literally. So basically, around when Dark Vengeance came out, that's when they switched over to the new paint range. That would make sense.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah, funny enough, well, like I actually didn't paint that Dark Vengeance set until right before 8th edition came out. So like I had slept on it for a while. So I think by the time I finally got back into painting, like they were gone. by the time 8th edition was around.
So you didn't paint that Sergeant before then, the one that you're thinking about doing now?
I probably, yeah, I painted, he was the first model I ever painted. I painted him around the start of, right before 8th edition started.
Alright, so you just had a spare one knocking about, but... you didn't strip him, did you?
I think I bought this one off eBay. No, I still have the old one. He's still kicking about.
Good.
He's got, I look at him, he's got that super thick layers of chappy bone on him. It's looking like nice, some nice cake frosting on there.
Yes, because a brighter color as well, like a nice bone armor. That's very forgiving for any thick paint, isn't it?
Yeah, you know, yeah. I mean, obviously back then I didn't know any better, but you know, I primed him black and then worked straight up to Ushabti. And I did not know any better. I didn't know how to thin paints as well. It's just like, yeah, the dark, what is it? Deathwing as your first models probably are not the best choice.
I still remember like trying to paint a really light horse, I think it was back in the day, because I had like had a unit of like it was either high elf horsemen or like wood elves, and although I don't know if you remember the horse, well, I don't know if you've probably seen the horses from back then, but they were like these kind of like two-part things that were just, they were okay for their time, I guess.
Yeah, I've seen them before. I like the sculpts, but go on, continue.
Yeah, no, it's just like I remember trying to paint a white horse and get all those like kind of blends into the skin and stuff, and it did not go well. It was not a fun time. Lighter colors can be, you know, very tricky to begin with, I think.
Yeah, definitely want to start off bright with those. Bright primers.
Yes, I mean that's that's the thing. It's just knowing how to start on them, really, isn't it?
Exactly. Nowadays, if I know there's going to be a lot of bright colors on a model, I just start off with a gray primer. It's a lot easier to start bright and go darker than it is to start dark and go brighter.
Yep.
It only takes like one coat with black to make something black. It takes like 20 coats with white to make something white over black. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a lot easier to work in one direction versus the other. Why hasn't someone invented dropper bottles that don't clog yet? That's a good question.
I know. Yeah, all of my droppers seem to be clogging recently. I think it's the warmer weather or something.
I've ruined a set of clothes by trying to force paint out
Oh
the
no.
bottle. I can't remember. I think it was a scale 75 bottle. And if you've never used scale 75 before, they don't. When you buy their paints, they don't. There's no opening for the paints. Like you have to like cut open a hole or drill a hole or whatever in the dropper bottle.
Yeah.
And the one I had like made in there was like entirely too small. So like the paint was not coming out. And like me being the smooth brain that I am, was just squeezing the bottle as hard as possible until like the entire cap of the bottle just shot out. And then paint went all over my desk, all over my shirt, all over my pants, like completely ruined everything. It was on that day that I learned you never squeeze dropper bottles harder than you think you should.
Yeah. There's always that moment though where you're a bit unsure. You're like, oh, maybe the paint will just come out, and like all the pressure that I'm putting on it won't just like explode everywhere. It's almost like out of laziness. I don't want to have to go and get a paper clip to try and like unclog this thing. Yeah.
No, the worst case scenario will happen. I believe that's called Murphy's Law, right?
That's right. Two and a half hours we're coming. Sorry, Carl.
Yeah. No, just reading chat. Chimera paint I struggle to do glazes with. You just have to thin that paint down really far if you want to do like subtle glazes with it. The nice thing about chimera paints is like they're super pigment rich. So like you can like basically just thin them down to like water consistency and they will still like go on smoothly. That's the nice thing about them. So you just want to thin them down more so than you think you need to.
I want to try these. Chimera.
Yeah, they're nice. Their magenta's great. Easily my favorite in that range. Although I've only ever used the original range. I've never tried their newer mixes. I've only used the pure pigment stuff.
Right.
Opinions on the Pro Acryl range. I've used the metallics before.
The metallics are lovely.
The metallics are really nice. I haven't used their normal paints, so don't have an opinion on those. But I will say their metallics are very nice. Inktense scale 75. Yes, Inktense is scale 75.
I've tried one of the Inktense actually when I was doing the Grey Knight video, and it was really nice. So I probably will pick up those at some point and give them a go.
Yeah, I like them. They have a nice range of colors too. They have yeah, I really enjoy them. I actually own the whole set. I own the whole I actually own all of the scale 75 paints. I haven't used them in ages. Well, I should say all of the base range, all of the Inktense ones, all of the fluorescent ones, and all of their metallics. I own all of those.
Nice.
So like I feel like I know what's good in that range and what's awful.
I hear that they take a bit of getting used to sometimes. It's like react slightly differently to like the way that GW ones do. They're a bit.
Oh, 100%. It's because like they're just so matte. Like, and you can also often get like a really patchy. Like if you're using them for base coats, like it mixes with GW paints. You can just get like this really patchy looking like finish, and it's just because you've got that super matte pigment or that super matte finish from the from the Scale 75 stuff, it just doesn't really mix all that well with the GW stuff. And it's going to vary from paint to paint, but like sometimes you can have issues with that I found.
You ever, because you've got some of that Dave the Rowney medium, right? Have you ever tried adding that to the Scale 75s? And
I actually have not. Since I actually started using that, I actually have not even touched the Scale 75 stuff. But that might be a good experiment.
Yeah, I guess we'll probably go to like another half an hour or so if you want, or it's up to you really.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Let's see, question: to what extent, discussing those old white horses, do you feel that GW minis have become too detailed? There's details in places a traditional sculpt can't go to, so they're awkward to paint. Whereas the old minis were hand sculpted, etc. There was never an awkward angle to paint at.
Yeah, I mean that's a good point actually. There's a lot of those like single piece kind of old sculpts that do just look so satisfying to paint, and then I have to remind myself that it's either in Finecast or metal.
Yeah, I feel you're talking about like too detailed. I feel like most of the models that Games Workshop has do a pretty good job of balancing detail between like open areas. I'm not really a big fan of models that just like have sculpted detail over every single surface.
Yeah.
I really like flat surfaces on models. I feel like they give you a lot of opportunity to kind of put your own spin on things if you kind of catch my drift.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Whereas like if you just have a ton of sculpted detail on model, it almost just feels like you're painting by numbers, which I'm not really a fan of. It feels a little boring sometimes. But yeah, I feel like the newer sculpts do a pretty good job of balancing that kind of balance between detail and flat surfaces and stuff. That's it though. Yeah, the older sculpts were great with kind of like the simplified detail and stuff. They just look really nice. Of course, it'll vary by model to model, but like some of those simpler sculpts, I get really tempted to paint up just because it's just like, man, I don't think this would take long. It would look really good. I love it.
Thank you, Kador, for being. There's no throaty scream on here. I apologize for that. I apologize. That's a Twitch thing. We're way more like high class here. No, I just haven't implemented it yet. There's no high pitched scream. Thank you very much though, Kador, for the support, dude. Something else that I was gonna say on that is that it's always a bit of a from a product perspective and from like a sculptor perspective. There's always a bit of a balance between, is your audience like a high-end display painter, or is it someone who's kind of painting stuff just to kind of get things on the tabletop quickly? And sometimes things that take a dry brush or quicker methods of painting, like a contrast paint, a lot easier is not always the thing that like a display painter kind of looks for. So like you'll see it on a lot of capes and banners and things like that now. Like there's a lot of sculpted details on them. And that kind of limits you a little bit if you're, display painter. It limits to what you can put onto those things as like little details. But yeah, it's difficult. It's a difficult balance to get to, I think. No throat screaming, dear. We have guests. No song requests. Look at these Twitch lot. Too used to the song requests on Twitch.
Got different rules over here.
Yeah, we've got different rules here.
Let's see. Started wiping my loaded brush on my hand instead of a towel because of an earlier conversation in this stream, and my painting is going so much smoother. Nice. Yeah, it's something I probably shouldn't do it as much as I do, but yeah, I tend to wipe my paint off on the back of my hand a lot of times. It's just a really bad force of habit, if I'm honest.
What's wrong with wiping the paint off on the back of your hand?
It's normally not an issue. It's just sometimes I forget to clean it off at the end of the day, and then I walk out in public and people are wondering what's wrong with me.
I'll just paint all over your lips or like your teeth or.
Oh, I've done that before where I was like, oh my god, there's paint on my mouth, and now I look like some sort of weirdo. But yeah, it's a great technique to kind of like offload that paint and get your brush tip nice and sharp. Bonus points if you're using a glove to do it. So that way you just take off the glove.
Yeah, it comes in handy for this kind of thing. Also for like handling stuff, I find that I don't rub off paint as much with a glove. Definitely.
Yep, 100%.
What brushes do you use? Are you trying to troll me right now? You know that's the most common question I ever get. I apologize, Scott, if it's not a troll question. At the moment, I'm using a Winsor & Newton Series 7, size 0. I tend to use a lot of either Winsor & Newton Series 7s or I use Rosemary & Co., which these are like a really nice cheap alternative. Series 33 and Series 343, I think they are. The miniature series ones. 323, sorry. Series 33 and Series 323. But yeah, these are like super cheap. So I like using these for a lot of blending work and glazing and stuff like that. Nice brushes. But these are probably a third of the price, I want to say, than like a Winsor & Newton at the minute. I don't know why Winsor & Newton prices have skyrocketed.
Ridiculous. I think over here, like a size 00 Winsor & Newton is like $18. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they can't get Rosemary & Co's over here anymore, so I feel like I kind of have to buy those. It's a bit of a shame. Let's see. Great work on the painting. Do you have any advice for color theory? I'm technically alright, but I find balancing the colors on the mini really hard. I would say, in general, like if you want some like to find like some inspiration for like color theory and stuff, like look outside of miniature painting.
Yes.
Like,
yeah.
Miniature painting's cool and all. There's some great artists out there, but like, I think you'll learn a lot more if you venture outside the world of miniature painting.
That is a great answer. Yeah.
Yeah.
So like traditional art and kind of like just anything, exactly. I guess, that's creative and artistic outside of paint, outside of miniatures.
It's just as an example, like when I was learning how to paint like faces and stuff, I didn't look at miniature painting tutorials. I actually looked at portrait painters, oil painters who paint on canvas. And I learned so much about just like the general colors that they use, about the ways that they paint the planes of the face and all sorts of stuff. And this is stuff that like I never see anyone talk about when it comes to miniature painting. Yeah. And it's stuff that helped me out so much when it came to miniature painting. Like it's so easily translated, like just the ideas and concepts. But yeah, like if you want to learn more about that sort of stuff, like venture to other mediums. Like don't be afraid to try, even if you're not like interested in doing like any sort of like portrait painting or landscape painting or anything like that. There's so many ideas that you can gather from those various different types of artists.
Because at a very basic level, I mean, that's an absolutely fantastic example. Look at pieces of artwork and things that really kind of stand out to you and impress you from a color point of view, and use that as a inspiration for your own work. But like, I think when people look at color theory, they see a very basic kind of explanation of it. They look at something that's kind of complementary, for example. They look at the other side of a color wheel and to the color that they're working with and think, oh, that's the color that I should use. But be aware that not just hue, but saturation of color and value are very important as well. So you can play around with how saturated that complementary color is. You can also play around with how light and dark it is, the value. And by doing that, yep, you get a more interesting looking paint job.
Exactly, yeah. Don't want to oversaturate the model. You want to make sure that all of your color values are in the right places. Yeah, it's It's about finding that nice balance between everything.
And just experimenting. Like, that is probably like one of the best pieces of advice, is just experiment.
Exactly. Don't be afraid to mess up a model. Like, chances are, like, you probably have tons of models that you are never gonna paint.
Exactly.
Like any
Everyone
of us.
has them.
Don't be afraid to mess up a couple. Let's see. Robert is asking, do you know what they why they changed the tau color scheme?
Okay.
God, can you ask
This is
Dave?
a troll question. Papa, I'm on to you. You're very naughty, and I'm... See me after the stream. This is a bit of a running joke. The question always comes up as to why the main color scheme for the tau on the box art changed, but I don't really have a good reason. It looks cool. The white scheme looks cool. Sorry, Dave. You will be later.
Is that Series 7 miniature brush, or is it the one that doesn't have miniature in the name? I recall there's some confusion over those.
Oh, this is just a regular Series 7, but I use the miniature one as well. For the miniature Series 7, I wouldn't go beneath a size 1. If that was the question,
Yeah, I think it kind of covers it. Yeah, there's advantages to both.
Yes.
I typically don't touch the miniature brushes. Other people swear by them. It's just about finding what really suits you.
I'll be honest, I get brush questions a lot of the time, and I understand why people ask them. Like, I understand why people think that it's important. But the brush is really not that important. A lot of the time, I'll just grab whatever is on my desk, and sometimes I'll have like a favorite that I've kind of like broken in a bit more, or is a bit more kind of better for edge highlights or whatever it is. But most of the time, I just grab whatever's on my desk. I don't think about it too much. If it does the job, then that's all that I care about. So a good quality Kolinsky sable brush. I would say pick the right size brush for the work that you're doing and that you feel comfortable with. So if it's for like edge highlighting and things like that, I would pick a finer brush, a smaller brush. And maybe like a size 0 or a size 1 or something like that. Maybe if you really want to, you go down to like a 00. But yeah, if you're doing bigger work, so like on a big squig or a big tank or whatever it is, get a bigger brush. Like you want a size 2 brush, probably minimum. It's gonna stop you having to like constantly refill your brush. It's gonna mean that you get like smoother results. So make sure that you pick the right size brush for the work that you're doing. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Series 7 Mini is just smaller. Yeah, it's more of like a triangular kind of shaped point to it. So you'll see the difference here between this one. Needs a clean. In fact, this is a Rosemary & Co. So this is the 323 Rosemary & Co., which is the equivalent to a miniature brush. So it's a Winsor & Newton miniature brush. So it's got more of a triangular kind of point to it. I know we get brush questions quite often, so I just wanted to make sure that I cover that, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I just have a bucket with brushes in it, and it's like I pull one out, and it's like, does it have a good tip on it? Yes. Okay, cool. This is what I'm using.
So
it's just you'll find out what works for you.
Exactly.
You practice.
Exactly. Just exactly like Gavin says. Just pick something that's doing the job for you at the time. I'd probably get a few of different sizes and just experiment, see which one suits you better, because what I tell you as well might not necessarily be for you. Like, I know Max uses like a 000 miniature sometimes to do some like really fine work. Like, at the end of the day, whatever you feel comfortable with, but just explaining the differences between the miniature series brushes and like a regular sable brush. These are both size 2s. You can see the difference in just the length of the brush there, and the miniature ones have more of a triangular kind of stout sort of shape to them, which basically means that they have a bit better snap on the brush. So I tend to find that these are better for like really fine kind of detail work where you don't want the brush to bend too much. So maybe like edge highlighting and stuff like that. So that's the reason why I used that during the ultramarine video, because I wanted to get those super sharp kind of highlights. But there's nothing preventing you from doing that with just a regular brush, really. Whatever you're comfortable with. Sorry, I'll shut up now. I keep going on about brushes.
People love brushes. I love brushes. You love brushes. Who doesn't love brushes?
We're like brush and paint nerds, I feel like sometimes.
It's a wholesome stream, talking about bananas and peanut butter and brushes. Okay.
Managed to get a little bit of work done today, so it's not too bad actually.
Yeah, it's looking great. I've gotten much less work done.
I mean, to be fair, you've been doing most of the work and reading what's going on in the chat, so thank you for that.
Yeah. It's fun stuff, honestly. I'm not being sarcastic. I just sound like I'm being sarcastic.
There's Gavin, he always sounds like he's being sarcastic.
No, I don't. No,
No,
very
I don't.
sincere person. Let's see. Any other questions? You should release a YouTube video going over what brushes you use.
Look, that was the whole point of this little bit. The synopsis of that video is brushes don't matter. The TLDR, brushes don't matter. Could be sharper, Dave. It always could be sharper. It could be sharper, could be smoother. You're absolutely right, Zerna.
How is the Skaven Deathmaster coming along? Slowly.
Ooh, I want to see some pictures of.
I mean, you got that one picture in the Discord that I posted a while back.
I'll see if I can get that.
I've done more work on that cloak.
Where did you post it?
I think it was in work in progress. And I was working on like the leather cowl or whatever on him. I don't know if you want to post that at some point or not.
Yes,
but,
yeah, let's definitely have a look at that. It's looking super smooth. Let me see if I can get that up.
Yeah, I was actually pretty happy with that recipe too. Yeah, I was wondering what else I was gonna do for the I have the rest of that cloak as kind of like a cold black kind of color. So it's looking pretty cool, but yeah, I haven't taken any pictures recently. I probably should. I should probably update my Instagram at some point.
Yes, you should.
I am really bad about that.
As one of your loyal fans, Gavin, I am very disappointed that you don't update your Instagram.
I'm disappointed, Dave. My life is a failure.
How far up is it? Oh, I'm trying to find it. Oof.
If I just search my name, if I'm honest.
The search function in Discord is awful.
Yes.
Yes.
What you do is from colon and then my username.
Can anyone link me to it in the bottom of the...
Here, hold on. I could if I just send it to you. Hold on. That probably would be way more convenient.
Yes. 13th of August. It was. Hold on, guys. Hold on. Technical difficulties.
Here you go. I just sent it to you.
Oh, there you
go.
Right. Ooh, that is looking pretty sweet. In fact, I can see if I can open this so we can get a proper close-up look at this. Oof.
I've just been, aside from this, I've just been building some models that I don't plan on painting up to like a super high level, but just kind of something I wanted to do for fun. Just one of those kind of mindless kind of projects that I want to work on outside of this.
Mm-hmm. So talk us through. I've got the picture up now. Talk us through the kind of recipe and your method for this.
Yeah. I believe it was base coated in a mix of incubi and black, and then I just worked up from there. So it was Incubi and Black, and then I mixed in some Mournfang, and I worked up from there. And then it was just pure Mournfang, and then I believe it was Steel Legion Drab,
Oh,
and
nice.
then
Yeah.
from Steel Legion up to Carrick Stone, and then I just mixed in some Screaming Skull, and then I think that there's like some dots of like pure Screaming Skull in there as well. And then like if I wanted to go, and then I just added those like kind of fine highlights and stuff using various mixes of like Steel Legion and Carrick Stone and stuff.
hmm
And
What
then if
was
I
in
needed to
the,
make certain areas darker, I just went in with my shade tones and shaded it further.
Yeah, what would what was the shade? Sorry if you already mentioned that.
It was a mix of Incubi and Black.
Incubi and
So
Black.
like
Nice.
you can really see that like on the bottom left of the leather.
Yeah,
How it
yeah.
goes like super dark in there. But yeah, like I just I didn't want to have it like super overpowering, but I
Mhm.
wanted it on enough of the model so that way it still provides a nice contrast between light and dark.
Yeah, I love that. Like playing around with the cold, sort of subtle tones in the shadows, and yeah, looks very nice so far. I'm looking forward to seeing that when it's done. What are your
Yeah.
thoughts for like the main? Because I remember you talking about the skin tone, wanting to do like a sort of albino kind of look to it, or
I was gonna do that, but if I'm honest, like the albino look, I just didn't feel like it worked all that well. This guy doesn't have much actual exposed like fur or skin or whatever on him,
right? Okay.
and I just didn't feel like it worked as well as I really wanted it to. So I'm probably gonna have a bit more of a warmer skin tone on him.
Okay.
I was
Yeah.
actually looking at more of like something akin to the one you have for your Skaven that you painted up in your tutorial.
Ah,
Just something warm like that, because I definitely wanted the pants to be like kind of like that Dark Reaper color.
Yep.
That bluish color.
Sort
And
of
I just thought
subtly
that
blue, but-
contrasts so well against that, having that kind of warmer skin tone.
Yeah.
And yeah, and there's like so little fur on this guy, so little fur on this guy
Yeah.
that I just didn't think the albino look would have been right for him.
Because I do actually have this figure in front of me, believe it or not. I bought one of these.
Yeah,
Which,
all you really see is like his hands, his feet, and like his nose. Like there's not much actual exposed fur and skin on him.
yeah, a little bit of a foot. That's pretty cool then. I quite like that. There's not tons of... There was a lot of skin on the Underworld ones, which was cool, but I actually quite like that you've got like a lot of sort of cloth textures and different stuff going on.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that rock texture. I see that you had to fill that, so there's like 2 sections. So it doesn't look too bad. Like half of his body.
No, the
Fine.
section underneath, like under the archway, was kind of annoying. Because like after you sand it, like there's already kind of like a lack of like any sort of like detail
Mhm.
on that area, and then like once you sand it down, it's just there's not much to work with there. So I got to figure out something. I'll probably have to just paint on some texture there or something. But yeah, or just add some like weathering and stuff to make it look interesting on the underside. But I'll figure that out.
I just realized he's got a little knife blade on the end of his tail with some like poison sort of dripping off of that as well.
Oh yeah, I love it.
Yeah, I saw the blade that you did as well. I think you put that onto your Instagram. That was looking super smooth.
Yeah, I was actually a big fan of how that turned out. I was trying something different on that one. Instead of like working up from like black on the non-metallic metal, I started off with a gray, and then I basically just like made my highlights like using pure white and just made them like super heat.
Super bright, yeah.
I made them huge. So you make the highlights like a lot larger than you intend them to be.
Yeah.
And what you do after that is then you just like mix in like a little bit of ice yellow or a little bit of like your Thunderhawk blue or whatever into like that white, and you do like super subtle glazes on it. Like it's all about like slightly tinting the white, and then from there you can add like your deep shadows. So like in the darkest areas it was basically like pure incubi, but yeah, you just want to maintain as much of that super bright layer as possible.
Yeah.
And it just makes it look super bright. And then with the flat area being that like super dark kind of a black color, it just contrasts so well against that and just makes it.
Yeah, you get that kind of like
really pop,
two-tone
yeah.
blade effect there, where you've got like the edge that looks kind of like like super sharp, and then the back of the blade is kind of like this unrefined like dark metal. That's
Exactly. Yeah. It's just a really nice contrast. It's a nice contrast between your light and dark values. It's just, yeah, it just really makes the edge of the blade really look super bright.
I think that's really important as well, like starting brighter than you think sometimes for a lot of this kind of stuff, where it's a lot easier to like glaze back down with the shading than it is to start or to glaze up to a blade that's as bright as what you've got it there. So yeah, it's a good tip.
Yeah, I actually really like going from brighter colors and then like shading down to darker ones. I find that, and maybe it's just me, but like I actually find that if I start in the other direction, so starting off dark and then moving up to bright, I tend to have the highlights like super tiny. And I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with that. I think it can look really cool, but I just always find that like my final highlights are just a really small amount of area on the model, and like I just kind of wanted to switch things up.
Yeah.
And I thought, instead of having the shadows and the darker areas being much of the model, how about we'd go in the opposite direction, so you have the lights and shadows taking up the majority of the models, with the shadows only taking up a small portion.
Don't be afraid of being too kind of bold and graphic with the paint job. I think sometimes like
exactly. Yep. The idea basically being that like I want the darkest tones on there. I want like the super dark color values to exist on the model, but they don't need to take up a ton of real estate. As long as they're there, it's still readable as like having that high contrast.
Yeah.
Without it taking up like an unnecessarily large amount of area.
Any other questions in the chat? Shaven rats with no fur. How are the Auric brutes going? I think he might have finished the brutes. They've
been done for a while. I just haven't taken pictures of them.
Yeah. And
I probably won't for a while.
It's such a shame we don't have any pictures of those, right? Like, yeah, he might not be able to get any pictures for a while, guys, but like trust me, they're a super nice paint job. I saw them in hand in person. Yeah, the whole squad looks amazing.
Yeah, I had fun with those.
Fun being the word there.
Yeah, that's the fun I've chosen. That's the word I've chosen to describe it. But yeah, I thought they came out pretty well, at least on our like, kind awesome. Of a squad level.
Okay, Gavin. Yeah, okay. Yeah, just
I
squad
probably,
level. Yeah. Just army painting there. Yeah.
I won't be able to get pictures of those for quite some time.
So I think there is one picture on your Instagram, right? Or a couple of pictures on there. Let me see if I can. Oh, of the work in progress shots.
Oh yeah.
Oops, wrong screen. There we go. So this is Gavin's just running. This is basic painting. I think that turned out awesome, dude. There was a lot of progress from this place as well. This is quite early on, I think.
Yeah, I think it was Drew that actually recommended increasing the contrast in the shadows. I really ran with that as well. So like the final models actually have a lot more contrast in them.
Contrast in the yellow, and you did all the chipping and all that kind of stuff as well to match the box art.
I have another photo.
I love the way you painted the faces actually.
Oh yeah, thanks. Yeah, I was really kind of happy with how those turned out too.
Super graphic and just oh, nice. What else have we got on here? Let's have a look. Oh, lovely skink. Yeah, I'd love to see you paint some more Lizardmen when that eventually comes around. I'd love to see you finish this orc as well one day.
Oh, he's sitting on my desk. He'll go paint it at some point. Maybe.
It's like literally the nicest painted orc arm that I've ever seen.
I think on this guy, I got to the point of painting the pants, and like I was trying to decide what I wanted to do on the pants, and I just couldn't figure it out. and I think that kind of discouraged me a little bit.
Oh,
But I know the colors I want to use, and I know the colors that I know what I wanted to do with it, but I just never got around to
you
it.
could literally do anything with those. You could just do them like a dark color. Just get it done. It looks amazing.
I know. I just sent you a picture. That's like a more kind of a slightly further along version of like what that squad looked like as well. The brute squad, I should say.
Yeah, just switch over to that 1 second. Is it just one picture? I'm trying to look it up. Try and get this open. There we go. Okay, yeah, it's a little bit further along. It's looking nice, dude. Yeah, I mean,
nice. He's done. He's done at this point.
I've seen these in person. I'm like, oh yeah, this is a really nice work in progress shot here, Gavin. They're finished at the moment. Yeah, very nice work. I think everything came out great on them, to be honest. Like, I really like the depth that you got into the yellow in the end, and like the fine scratching, and everything's like super smooth. Like the bone, the even just the metal came out really nicely.
I actually kind of like, it might not be like realistic or whatever, but like I actually really like how that kind of like pinkish bone kind of looks, that reddish bone.
Why isn't it realistic? I mean, bone could be lots of different shades.
Realistic, that's not the right term, but like, I don't know, I just really like that color combination for it. I can't remember what I did for it now. I just knew I think it was Doombull and Carrick and some other shades as well.
A little bit of Reichland or Doombull, yeah. Doombull would add that kind of tinge to it, yeah.
There's definitely Doombull in there.
Yeah.
I'll have to remember what I did for that and write that down, because I really like how that color combination came out.
Yeah, awesome. Basically, start off with a nice bright kind of Ushabti bone color, or like Carrick stone, something like that, right? And then just,
I think it was Ushabti bone. I think you're right.
Glaze
shaded
whatever colors you want into it, I guess. With Doombull in that case.
Yeah. I think that's what it did.
Yeah, and the metallics on that weren't overcomplicated, were they? It was just pretty straightforward.
Yeah, like there's a lot of metallics on those dudes, so I wasn't gonna spend like hours on each blade, right? So I think it was pretty simple. It was just like I base coated with like whatever my metallic was at the time, and I just mixed in some black, and then I just shaded with the Agrax, and then just pure black paint, and then I just highlighted by mixing in some silver or whatever, and then pure silver edge highlights. Super simple.
Awesome. Yeah, I think they turned out really nice. Well, we've actually gone over time, Gavin. It's been great fun talking to you, dude. Like, I could very happily sit here and chat to you all day. But I know that we should probably cut it pretty soon.
Yeah. No, that was a lot of fun.
If there's any more questions, like for people to ask, like get them in quick.
Let's see. Someone says, on the topic of magnifiers, and getting older isn't always fun. Do you guys prefer still mounted magnifiers or visors? Visors, 100%. I'm not a fan of mounted.
Oh, so like the ones that kind of clamp onto your desk, sort of thing, like Yeah, I definitely same as Gavin. I definitely recommend getting some actual magnifying visor.
I know one guy who uses a desk-mounted magnifier, and he's crazy. You should listen to him.
I mean, if it works for you, then it works. But like, yeah, I think
no, he's crazy. No,
he's just crazy. I'll put a link to one in the Discord. If you're on the Patreon, then I've also put a link to it in the recent Mangler Squig video. It's the one that both me and All Day, I think, use. It's just a generic brand one, super cheap. That's the one that we use, but you don't have to use that one. There's loads of different ones on Amazon that would probably do the job, but the lighter the better. Just bear that in mind. You're going to be wearing it for long periods.
Let's see. Kador's asking, what is the best way to get back into painting if you haven't painted for months and seem to have anxiety about picking up a brush? Hashtag asking for a friend. Honestly, to just set up your area, set aside some time, and just get back to it. Even if it's just base coating something, like
Just
get
paint
back in
something
the
for
groove.
fun. Like, don't even think of it as being like something that you need to show to anyone or anything else like that, right? Just do something that looks like it would be fun to paint, I guess, from my point of view.
Yeah, I think we've basically caught up on questions. Yeah. Anything else you want to cover?
I think that's about it. I mean, we could sit here all day, but I know I'm trying to keep things a little bit shorter than what we ended up doing with mine last time. I think it was a great chat, but it just went on for it went on for a long time. I mean, it passed like no time, and as far as I was concerned, I could chat to either of you guys all day long about painting. Thanks for being so generous with your time, guys. Thank you for hanging out. Thank you to everyone today for hanging out. It's been a nice, calm, chill little painting session. I know for certain that I've loved hearing like Gavin's perspective on stuff. I mean, either you or Martin, obviously, welcome back absolutely anytime. If anyone else like from the painting community wants to get involved with this as well, and like then yeah, you, reach out to me, or maybe I should probably start reaching out to a few people and seeing if anyone's kind of interested in just chatting about painting whilst I try and paint in the background. That's going to be the name of the stream. Chatting about painting with awesome painters whilst I try to paint in the background. It's pretty catchy.
Work, but it's not bad.
Right, okay. We'll call it there for today, guys. Thank you so much. Thank you to Gavin.
Bye.
I'll catch you all next time. I'm not sure when the next stream is going to be. Check out the new video on the Patreon if you're interested in seeing how I painted up these squigs. It's not super in depth because some of it's like been a lot of back and forth and stuff like that, but hopefully it's kind of useful to you guys and gives you a kind of good idea. The next video, funnily enough, is probably going to be on painting some of the goblins and the base and all the extra kind of details and eyes and all the extra stuff basically. That's going to be the next video for the Patreon. Thank you guys, and we will catch you in the next one. Thank you very much.
Bye.